Good evening and welcome to the May 28th. Oh, I thought you said you're ready. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
Probably. Okay.
You ready for us?
She gave a thumbs up.
She gave the thumbs up.
Yes. All right. Good evening and welcome to the May 28th, 2025 Hybrid Planning Commission meeting. I am Chair Dan Thompson. Tonight's Hybrid Planning Commission meeting is brought to you by Zoom. Welcome to all and thank you for joining us tonight. Commissioners, please have your microphones turned on for the roll call. Deputy Clerk, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Hughes,
Present?
Vice Chair Gibson,
Here.
Commissioner Neese,
Present.
Commissioner Perez,
Here.
and Chair Thompson.
Here.
Thank you.
The Planning Commission meets in person and utilizes the Zoom platform for remote participation. I will do my best to recognize commissioners in the order in which hands are raised. After being recognized, you may then ask your question. Our first item of business is public appearances. This is an opportunity for anyone to speak to the commission about issues of concern, except items requiring a public hearing, any quasi-judicial matters, or campaign-related matters. I will note that there are two public hearings related to the park zone later this evening and ask that you hold your comments if they pertain to the hearings. Deputy Clerk, is there anyone who has signed up for public appearances as of 4 p.m. today who wishes to address the commission?
No, sir, there is not.
Thank you. Tonight's agenda will include public appearances via Zoom. Individuals wishing to address the commission may do so in person or by Zoom or by telephone, provided they register with the deputy clerk by 4 p.m. When it is your turn to speak, you will be called by name. Remarks must be addressed to the commission as a whole and not to individual commissioners or staff. Please speak audibly and state your name and state city of residence for the record. You will have 3 minutes to speak. When your time has ended, I will thank you for your comments and move to the next speaker or item of business. Would you please promote the first speaker if there is one for the public hearings?
There is not. Thank you.
Okay. We now move to regular business. The first item of regular business is to review and consider approving the April 23 meeting minutes. Commissioners, may I have a motion to approve the minutes?
So moved.
Is there a second?
I second.
There is a motion by Commissioner Acuse and a second by Commissioner Perez to approve the minutes. Is there any discussion on this item? Since there isn't, Deputy Clerk, please conduct a roll call vote. Commissioners, please turn on your microphones.
Thank you, Chair. Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you.
The second item of regular business is Planning Commission Agenda Bill 25-09, public hearing on Park Zone Code Amendment. This public hearing is to receive public comments on the proposed Park Zone Code Amendment. My understanding is there is no individuals wishing to make oral comments, although we did receive 2 written comments. This public hearing is now open as of 6:04 p.m. There is nobody who signed up, correct?
That's correct.
Okay. The hearing is closed as of 6:05 p.m. The public portion of this hearing is now closed as of 6:04 p.m. The next item of regular business is Agenda Bill 2510, public hearing on Parks Zone Comprehensive Amendment. This public hearing is to receive public comments on the proposed Park Zone Comprehensive Plan Amendment. Individuals wishing to make a public comment on this agenda item may do so in person. The public hearing is now open as of 6:05 PM. Deputy Clerk, again, there are no persons who have signed up to provide oral testimony. Is that true?
That is correct.
All right. Since there is no further testimony, the public portion of this hearing is now closed as of 6:05 PM. Now we'll move to the staff presentation and discussion of Agenda Bill 25-09 Park Zone Code Amendment. Welcome Deputy CBD Director Allison Van Gorp and Management Analyst Carson Hornsby.
Thank you, Chair. Just give me one moment to get my screen share turned on here. Video. Okay, there we go. All right, I just have a brief presentation to go through, and I'm going to talk about both the code amendment and the comprehensive plan amendment, and then we'll take those each as individual actions, however. So we'll work through the code amendment first and then the comprehensive plan amendment. So just kind of a reminder of how this all fits together. And then I'll talk a little bit about the process for how we can work through all the proposals tonight. Just wanted to kind of remind you how the comprehensive plan, the PROS plan, the capital improvement plan, other detailed plans, as well as implementation documents like development regulations all kind of fit together in the scheme of how we operate the city. So the comprehensive plan is that citywide vision, goals, and policies for the city as a whole. And then we have a whole slew of more detailed plans that refer to specific areas of operations or activities within the city. There's several examples on the screen: the PROS plan, the climate action plan, bike and pedestrian facilities plan, and the capital improvement program. These are all adopted by reference in the comprehensive plan. So they're kind of like an offshoot of the comprehensive plan itself. And they, provide the detailed goals, policies, and program information related to that area. And then finally, at the bottom level is implementation of all these plans. And we do that through several different ways. One is our development regulations and other city codes. We also have programs we operate and other actions that the city takes as a government or things that our staff participate in. And altogether, those help implement each of these plans. So tonight, we'll be talking about amendments to both the comprehensive plan and the development regulations, kind of two different levels there. And they're also related to the PROS plan, because the PROS plan is really the guidance and policies for everything that's happening with parks, recreation, and open space. Thank you. All right, so the comp plan has 7 elements. This was just updated at the end of 2024. And the PROS plan was adopted along with the comp plan by reference, like I said. The PROS plan itself was created in March of 2022 after a very extensive community engagement process that lasted about 2 years. And it's intended to guide and direct everything related to parks and recreation and open space. It's aligns and is consistent with the comprehensive plan, and then other master plans and capital improvements planned within parks need to align with the PROS plan. So the capital improvement program is a piece of the budget that's adopted each year. It's amended on an annual basis, but it's really like a 6-year rolling plan for all of the capital investments that the city's making into any kind of infrastructure, buildings, facility, any other kind of facilities. This is where we're spending money in terms of building things and maintaining our facilities. The comprehensive plan links directly with the capital improvement program through the capital facilities element. It actually adopts like a 20-year version of the CIP. So it's really the long-range look at what are all of the capital improvements that will be needed. And then those are updated, like I said, in the 6-year rolling basis through the CIP that's adopted in the budget. So anytime a new project, building maintenance project, or creating some piece of new infrastructure comes forward as a need that the city identifies, it should first be added to the CIP as something, as a future project. And then depending on its priority, it can be moved up within the CIP and funded when the funds are available and as the priority dictates. So sometimes things can be shifted around within the CIP, depending on what the priorities are in that given budget biennium. Finally, the development code is really how we implement everything related to regulating development and classifying land into zones, identifying what uses and types of buildings can be in a given area, how land is subdivided, what kinds of structures can be constructed, as well as regulating critical areas and environmentally sensitive areas. All right, so what we have before us tonight is amendments to the code and the comp plan, as I said. We're looking at a number of areas within the development code, Title 19. We'll be adding 2 new sections. We've went through and numbered these since the version that you last reviewed. So those are 1905-050 to establish the park zone and 1905-060 to add the development standards for the park zone. And then there are amendments proposed in 1916-010 related to some definitions. And then in 1901-040, which just establishes each of the zones. And then finally, the zoning map in Appendix D will need to be updated as well. And then in the comprehensive plan, we'll be making a couple of amendments in the land use element to update the land use designation table and the land use map. So in terms of process, we've tried to chunk this out into a few steps to give you some bite-sized pieces. We'll talk about the code amendments first. And we identified a handful of minor amendments that were more basic wording changes or simple changes. And we would recommend that you approve those as a group, as a block, with a motion. If there's any proposal within that list that a commissioner would like to pull out for individual consideration, that could also be done by motion. And then once we've gone through the minor amendments, we'll work through the list of major amendments. There's 23, and at that point, we'll pull up the draft code amendment and walk through it in order and look at those proposals in the order they fall within the draft. There are a number that either are very similar, if not the same, or a couple of different proposals within the same code section. So I think it'll make sense to look at those together rather than kind of skipping around based on the order they were submitted. With those, we don't need to get to a final decision for the recommendation tonight. What we would suggest, because there are a lot to get through, is that the commission try to achieve consensus on each of these in terms of whether it should be added to the recommendation, it should be rejected, or if you'd like to redraft a proposal. That could be done tonight, or you can also ask staff to take a stab at rewriting or wordsmithing a section, and we'll bring it back for the next meeting on June 10th for final consideration. Once we've got through all that, we'll still have the comprehensive plan to look at. There really is only one proposal there in terms of an amendment. So hopefully that will be fairly straightforward. And then we have one additional recommendation to consider as well. So those 2 will come at the end. Any questions about the process or how we're going to move through this? Great. All right, Carson is going to share the matrix, and Chair, if you'd like to start with the minor amendments.
So if you'd like to consider the minor amendments, that can be done.
with a single motion, or if there is any interest in pulling out and recategorizing any of the proposals, that is possible as well.
I would be interested in pulling 1, 2, and 6 out of minor. And the reason I say that is I'm not quite sure of some of the terms and what we're actually getting at as far as structures. Public art, yes. Arts amenities, I don't understand that. And then the gathering places, I'm trying to find out, I mean, a park obviously is a gathering places. Are we talking about building things? Are we talking about performing arts centers when we're talking about those terms? So when I saw them as minor, the reason I would like to have those be major is because I don't quite, it's 1, 2, and 6. I don't know what we're talking about. You know, we have various scale, performance, spaces, and covered seating. That's, I think that's a major one, but minor, it kind of ties into the rest of, I mean, what's really being proposed with the language. Because it's got to be consistent with the pros plan. We're not here to add new structures, amenities, or other uses outside the pros plan. So I would ask that 1, 2, and 6 be removed so we can discuss those a little closer.
Are there any other amendments that any commissioners want to remove from the minor section? For more discussion?
I guess just for a clarifying question, number 5 has a proposed amendment by Chair Thompson, and then there's a staff alternative. So we need to, which one are we putting on the docket versus, yeah.
I think the proposed amendments identify that the staff alternative, if the motion is approved all at once, then the staff alternative would be the one that's accepted.
I'll make a motion, Chair, if that's okay. All right,
Can you state your motion,
yes.
please? Thank you.
My motion is to approve the proposed minor amendments and amend the draft materials as presented in PCB 2509, excluding log items 1, 2, and 6.
Seconded.
For purposes of clarification, I just want to make sure that I captured the motion correctly. I have a motion by Gibson, seconded by Chair Thompson, to approve the proposed minor amendments as presented in PCB 25-09, excluding 1, 2, and 6.
Correct.
Thank you.
Can I get? If I may, if I can get a clarification, does that exclusion then move those into major? Thank you. Okay, good. So we have additional consideration. Thank you.
Can I ask a clarifying question as well? I'm not sure I heard. You're taking the staff version of item 5?
That's correct.
Okay, thank you.
For item 3, your clarifying comment about that comment applies to signs. If we want to incorporate that, do we need to make another motion? Or, yes,
If this is adopted as a group, it will add the per side words to this section. That will make this a little different from the wording that is in the open space zone. But we believe that it would be interpreted the same either way.
Allison, are you saying that amendment may not be necessary?
Yes.
Okay.
So just for clarification, the minor that we're voting on right now, looks like 3, 4, and can you scroll down?
Yes, it's 3, 4, and 5.
3, 4, and 5. All right. Any further questions or discussion? Yes, Commissioner Hughes.
Are we taking, for your motion, are we taking number 3 as written by the proposer? Or are we accepting the staff suggestion to not add it because it's redundant to existing language?
As proposed by Commissioner Neese.
Any other questions or comments? I think we're ready for a vote.
Okay, so the motion on the floor is to approve the proposed minor amendments as presented in Planning Commission Bill 25-09, excluding 1, 2, and 6.
Yes, that's correct.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
and Commissioner Hughes.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, let me switch over to the draft code amendment.
Allison, should, we discussed earlier that we would work off of not the matrix, but the
Correct.
actual-
Carson's pulling that up as you speak.
Oh, okay, and then I guess we're gonna go through it major by major, right?
Yeah, I think we should just go through it in order. We need to make sure we loop back to the 3 minor amendments that were just excluded, 1, 2, and 6. I'll try to, the first 2 are right at the beginning, so that'll be easy. We just gotta make sure we get number 2.
All right, so we'll start off with minor amendments, log 1 and log 6. These are proposed amendments to the purpose statement. This would change the purpose statement to read, "The purpose of the park zone is to preserve and maintain parks which provide green space, shoreline access, conservation opportunities, and recreational and social spaces for individuals and gatherings."
May I speak to this? Because this is my amendment, the first one. They're very similar, 1 and 6, but they don't say exactly the same thing. For number 1, to clarify, because I think there was a question about what does it mean? My purpose there was to get in alignment with the pros plan. I'm thinking about in the pros plan, there's the rowing club partnership coming up between the city and the new rowing club nonprofit. So I think having shoreline access explicitly called out is important. Conservation opportunities, that's what we do. You know, we have tons of volunteer events. Yeah, I think that's all of the shoreline access and conservation opportunities were my ads that are shown there.
This is Chair Thompson. I don't have any objection to number 1.
Okay.
And I agreed with you. I was gonna raise the point, 1 and 6 are not, they were
Yeah.
stated to be the same. I don't think that they're same. So when I look at 1, I probably would have left it in a minor now that I think about it, if they had not been joined, but I have no objection to number 1. I do think that it's more consistent with the pros plan.
May I make a motion then to approve that and we can deal with the next part separately? Because I think there's differences of opinion about those 2 items. My chair kind of.
I think so. Make a motion to approve your amendment found in log 1.
I'd like to make a motion to approve the amendment proposed in log 1 as written.
Second that motion.
Is that okay for you, Deb? Are we doing this correctly?
You're doing wonderfully, but I will ask you to lean in a little bit, Chair, if you might, so I can capture your voice better.
All right.
Just to confirm, I have a motion by Commissioner Hughes and a motion by Commissioner Perez to approve the amendment proposed in log 1 as written. Thank you.
Any discussion or questions, commissioners? None. Please call the roll.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
and Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Thank you.
So with that amendment, the purpose statement now reads, the purpose of the park zone is to preserve and maintain parks which provide green space, shoreline access, and conservation opportunities, I believe.
No, you-
Conservation, recreational, social.
Thank you.
Conservation. It was rewritten to go where it's 6, so it doesn't make sense as written.
Yeah. Yeah, so we'll have to see what happens with 6 before we figure out what needs to happen at the end of that sentence. Yeah, I mean, I think what's in the matrix is clear.
Mhm.
What's here is not as clear.
Yeah.
Yeah,
So we don't try to. We just.
or just put a comment bubble in here that says we'll use what's in the matrix.
Sorry, we're working through some budget.
So I think we want to look at what is in the matrix on number 6, because there is a slight wording difference between these two that won't make sense if 1 is approved and 6 is not approved.
Saying we can't revisit the language at 6,
I can do that in a minute.
so we can just get through 1.
All right.
To confirm the language of this one.
So there's 6. It takes what you just approved and then added this part about social spaces for individuals and gatherings.
So this is probably a good time to have the conversation, I think, around, my intent with log number 6, item number 6. The intent here was to provide a way of activating Parks and Recreation to have additional considerations around gathering spaces, which could be defined in a multitude of different ways, but allowing, not simply giving the park areas sole focus to individuals, but providing the opportunity, of course, it would need to be permitted and approved for gatherings of various sizes, in addition to providing for individuals as part of this particular plan. That was the intent, pulling in from the original comprehensive plan, which again, I know we're going to be addressing at a later point.
So should we do this by motion? Have him make a motion to add his language, social spaces for individuals and gatherings?
That makes sense, yes.
Okay, make your motion.
I make a motion that we add the social spaces for individuals and gatherings to the log number 1 as a additional clarification and inclusion within the scope of allowable items for this portion of the code.
Second,
All right. So the motion was made by Commissioner Perez to add the language social spaces for individuals and gatherings to the language in log 1 and seconded by Commissioner Acuse. Anybody have any questions or comments?
I'm sorry, Chair, I'm just going to ask one more time that we repeat the motion. I have add social spaces from, go ahead.
Social spaces for individuals and gatherings to the language in log 1 as we just amended it. So this would be additional language.
Thank you.
I guess I'm just unclear about, are we setting this language up for some other amendment later on to make sense? Otherwise, don't the words that are already there sort of cover what you're saying?
The item that is in my read of the code, the item does not include any provision for gatherings. It allows for social spaces, but adding the clarification of individuals and gatherings allows for the provision of various scale gathering spaces as part of the park's consideration.
My comment is, I do think it's kind of confusing. The temporary use provision in this ordinance gives the city manager the authority to grant permits for gatherings. They also have the covered picnic areas that they rent out. And I think that this would have been a good concept for the pros plan. And the reason that the pros plan was really good is because it went through park by park. You had to sit there and say, this park will have this park won't, et cetera. So I don't know that this is necessary. I don't think it's harmful, but the gatherings in a legal sense are permitted, and this zone gives the city and the city manager the authority to do that with whatever restrictions that they place on it. That's the only comment I have.
Yeah.
Yes.
I'll comment that I appreciate the spirit of it. We're so focused on individual excellence in our community that I think it's nice in a purpose or mission statement to bring the social aspect. I do agree that the social spaces could already be covering that. But I'm happy to support it just to liven up the spirit of it and make it more community oriented. I don't have a problem with it. I don't have a problem without it.
Anything further from any other commissioner? Please call the roll.
Thank you, sir. So there is a motion by Perez, which was seconded by Commissioner Acuse, to add social spaces from individuals and gatherings to the language in log 1 as previously amended. Thank you. Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Acuse.
Aye.
Thank you.
So Allison, if we're moving down the actual park zone language, are we now moving to log 21?
That's correct. And Carson just pulled that up on the screen.
Okay.
This is
And
major.
Log 21 is an amendment to number 2 on the list of uses permitted, recreational facilities and amenities. It proposes adding a number of examples for each of these terms in the list of permitted uses. The staff response on this one was that these examples are included in the definitions for both of these terms that are proposed to be added to the definitions section of the development code. So it's unnecessary to include the examples here in the list of uses permitted.
Commissioner Perez, would you like to make your motion?
I'm sorry, you're talking about item number 2 here?
Yes, but it's your log 21,
21.
Okay,
this one here.
mhm.
So, what is the language that you would like to add?
The language that I would like to add to that particular section is the various scale performance spaces and covered seating provision of that particular language.
Is there a second?
Well, is there an actual motion on the table yet?
Well, I treated it like a motion.
Uh,
You want to maybe use the actual language? I make a motion.
Sure. Thank you, Chair. I make a motion that we add the language various scale performances and covered seating to the to item C, number 2, as indicated on the screen in front of us.
Is there a second? Is that good for you, Deb? Do you understand that?
I'd like to ask a clarification because I'm reading
Yeah.
that the entire thing that's underlined is was what was proposed in the matrix. Are you scaling it back to say just various scale performance spaces and covered seating?
You're asking me?
Or do you
No.
with the whole thing that's underlined?
Yeah, that's different than I recall in this submittal. I believe it was just the various scale performance spaces and covered seating that was added.
Second,
All right, it's been, I'll see if I can get this right. Commissioner Perez has made a motion to add the language various scale performance spaces and covered seatings to section C2 of the draft park zone development regulations, and Commissioner Acuse has seconded it. Are there any questions or discussion? Would you like to go first?
Does Carson have a?
I just have a quick comment just for clarification for the commission. So everything underlined here in number 2 of uses permitted was included in the proposal. I think what may have happened is that you looked at the definition for these terms and added in the definition to the permitted uses. However, that section is at the end. I can show you the example. So down here in definitions, we have pretty much the same. I mean, they're 2 separate terms, amenities versus facilities. So the examples included in each of those are slightly different. So
Maybe this amendment should be modifying definitions rather than loading up this one
That's what the
section.
staff recommendation was. Either it's unnecessary because it's already there in the definition, or if you would like to add certain words to the definition, that would probably be the best way to make this type of amendment.
Yeah, that does make sense.
Yeah, that makes sense to me too.
Because the language that you want is various scale performance spaces and covered seating.
That is correct.
So do you want to withdraw your motion and reframe it as a motion to amend let's see, would it be amenities or a facility, do you think, Carson? If he was going to amend and add this language.
yeah, should we maybe make our way down the list, and then once we get to the definitions, we can have a new motion that proposes adding the different examples under whatever definition is in question.
All right, Commissioner Perez, for clarity, maybe withdraw your motion and we'll revisit it.
I hereby move to withdraw the motion and we'll consider it under definitions to follow.
Okay.
You simply withdraw your motion and Commissioner Hughes, do you withdraw your second as well?
I withdraw my second.
Thank you.
Okay, moving down, let's see, we had, it was a minor amendment, log 2. And this, and log 10. and 22. So these actually are a combination of my motion. You've kind of combined my motion and Commissioner Perez's. Although I probably like Commissioner Perez's better because it's a little bit more expansive. So let me take a look here. I won't make a motion on mine. Why don't you make a motion on yours, number 22? And then, because that incorporates mine, but then adds to the size and material durability.
You can add mine too, number 2.
Oh. And how do we get to 10?
You say,
So-
if you agree with what the chair has said, then you would say, I'd like to make a motion to modify item 5 as written in the revised draft.
Okay, great.
Did that work?
I think that'll work
You need
great.
to read the whole sentence. Read the whole sentence.
Yeah, you guys are having a little bit of a conversation between each other, so I need someone to make the motion and tell me what that motion is, please.
Right. And
Thank you.
that's what we're trying to clarify. I think that if you do log 22, your motion, that covers everything.
Well, we'll try it. So I hereby make the motion to include major amendment log 22. By adding the word material durability to the minor amendments log number 2 and major amendments log number 10 above.
Now, I think before we second it, I don't think that
You have to second it to have a discussion.
all right, I second it, but I don't understand it. I believe that if you just say that, I would like to make a motion to amend MICC 19.05050C5 and add, quote, all public art in the park zone shall be approved by the Parks and Recreation Commission as to size and material durability. That's the motion that I think would work.
Okay.
Point of order, I think the motion was made as to what is everything that is written up there.
Yeah, so we
Alright.
need to make a decision on minor amendment log 2. Kate's proposal. And then the piece that you just read out, Chair, pertains to major amendments log 10 and log 22.
I have a
So-
point of order question for staff. Are commissioners allowed to combine amendments written by multiple people? For example, could Commissioner Perez say, I'd like to make a motion to modify item 5 to say public art and arts amenities. All public art in the park zone shall be approved by Parks and Recreation Committee as to size and material durability. Can
Yeah, I
he
think-
can propose that, right? He
I
can
think
propose to
either
do them
what
all
you
at
just
once.
said or what he actually, the motion he actually made, which referred to each of those log numbers, either of those is fine. We just want to be clear that everyone understands what's on the table here.
All right, we have a pending motion. Does anybody want to offer any questions or comments?
Just comment about, is this the appropriate place to start putting conditions when we're just talking about uses permitted? I'm just, I read code a lot and I think the first part of that log 2 makes sense. But is there a better place for the rest of this?
I mean, this is really about the process for approving a use, which is typically handled in a different part of the code where we identify land use review types and the process by which they're reviewed.
There's not really another section for this to go into, which then leads me to believe that maybe there should be, or help me if there is.
I'm gonna look at what we said in the matrix.
Would it be a new section under development standards for art?
I mean, it could be, but it's not really a development standard either. It's really a question of process and who has the authority to make the decision, which is typically handled in a different area of the code. And, you know, right now, the Arts Council has that authority and provides a recommendation to the city council on any art that is going to be placed in a park. So that's in a whole separate part of, you know, that's part of the authority of the Arts Council. It's in their bylaws. And really, those would all need to be amended if we were going to change who has the authority for making a recommendation to the council on public art in a park.
The Parks and Recreation Commission in their memo to us and to the council has additional recommendations, and they stated that the PRC is interested in exploring new opportunities for collaboration with the Arts Council and being involved in the review process for public art installations in the parks. Are you saying that we probably shouldn't use the park zone to do that? That we can't put in there that the Parks Commission would have authority to say over the size of the art?
Yeah, I believe that the recommendation the city manager gave to the PRC when they discussed this was that if they wanted to make such a recommendation, they could make that to the council. This would be a council level decision if we want to restructure how, you know, this recommendation process for art in parks works. And if the council wanted to direct the city to make this change, then the staff could work on the appropriate code amendments and bylaw amendments as separate work items in the future.
How would we then continue or make that
I think
recommendation
you
to the
can
council?
affirm or join the PRC in making that recommendation to the city council as an additional recommendation along with the code amendment and comprehensive plan amendment recommendations.
All right, I know we have a motion pending, and I read the staff's concerns in the comments, and I'm just wondering if this isn't a bigger process or should be, like, I think Commissioner Neese pointed it out, that maybe should join with the Parks and Recreation Commission and to the council and say they need to come up, or tell staff to come up with a process where if art is going to go into the park, it's a joint.
It certainly can be done. We just need to do a little bit larger analysis of what code amendments would be needed in different areas of the code, and then also that bylaw update.
Okay, can I jump in here?
Yes.
So I was on the Arts Council when this plan was presented to us and when we voted on, you know, what the Arts Council thought of the Parks Plan. And the consensus was that, no, we don't need to provide a list of development standards for arts necessarily. It would just go through the arts process, Arts Council selection process, which ultimately results in a recommendation to the city council for a new art installation. That process does include engagement with appropriate commissions, community members, and so on. So the Arts Council process already has that engagement built into it. The comment that I had for this or for this discussion was that if we don't have any language anywhere in the development code that references that process, then how do we make that link? Or is that link just there without mentioning it? Or it feels like there should be some sort of reference to the Arts Council's process and approval process, deferring to what's already in place.
Well, could we just join the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendation to the council that this is be kind of a separate work item, and they tell staff come up with a more formal process where everybody's working on the same page, the Parks and Recreation Commission and the Arts Council. I'm gonna get those two guys in a room and tell them without having to put it in the park zone.
Yeah, I suppose what my point is that that's already in place through the Arts Council's bylaws.
Oh, okay.
That process is already there. It has the function that we're talking about. It's just how does it get tied to the actual development code? Is my question of how to best do that.
I mean, I think these development regulations need to allow the use. That's the first way. And then if we want to clarify the process for how this is approved, I'd recommend making that amendment in a different area of the code. Right now, it will default to the Arts Council process because that is already established and, that's already our administrative procedure for how we analyze these kinds of proposals.
So I think with that in mind, my recommendation would be to rescind the motion and ask staff to recommend language that ties the development code to the Arts Council's existing process. For the log 22 item, I have a separate comment on log 2, but kind of staying on this for now.
Commissioner Hughes?
Question for the deputy city clerk. Because proposed minor amendment log 2 was included, if we rescind, if we don't vote on it but rescind, we can bring that back to the table. Is that correct?
If you withdraw,
If Commissioner Perez were to withdraw his motion, I could then make a motion to bring item 2 to the table. Okay, thank you.
Great.
I'm in agreement with that, Commissioner Gibson.
And before we rescind that, I got another comment on log 2. The staff recommendation for this item was to actually expand the definition of public art instead of adding it to this section of the development code. And I would recommend that we take that recommendation instead of adding it as shown.
All right, we'll wait on that. We got to do something with Commissioner Perez's motion that's out there.
Understood. So I rescind the motion for MICC. Sorry, I have to go by memory here.
all you need to do is I withdraw my motion and I need the seconder, which was Thompson, to withdraw his second. And you're good.
Okay, great. Thank you.
You're
So
welcome.
I move to rescind the motion for major amendment log 22.
And I rescind the second. Okay, so we don't have any motion pending on that.
And
We have Commissioner Acuse, who has her number 2. And then we have the alternative by the city. Can we do those at the same time, or do we have to do one and then if it fails, do the other?
I think you can just make a motion for whichever thing you would like to do and vote on it, and that may give us the direction we need. And a second motion could be required depending on what the first motion is.
Okay, I think Commissioner Acuse, it's your motion.
I'd like to make a motion to amend item 5 to say public art and arts amenities. I would need a second.
I second that.
All right, I would like to speak to that, Commissioner Acuse.
I think it speaks for itself, honestly.
Right.
I think,
Okay,
there's a lot of arts and potential for additional arts amenities in our existing multi-purpose buildings and yeah, I just think it's missing with just art. I think most people interpret art as an individual piece of art.
what is the arts amenities?
Yeah.
I think an arts amenity would be a space where you can view art. So there could be a multi-purpose building in, this is a multi-purpose building complex, for example, and there's art, there's a viewing art space reserved for viewing art on the walls. Just think it's more consistent with what we actually do. And then I was also thinking about, in terms of arts amenities, I was also thinking about, we have, what are they called? I don't drink really, so there's something with wine and art in the park. Like we have events and amenities and things that are not just static art in the parks. I thought amenities was a vague enough term that it could encompass all the things that we do that aren't just single pieces of art.
Can I ask a question, Allison, of you? What is the thinking behind the alternative? Where you put, is that just to make it simple?
Our thought was that, you know, this arts amenities is a new term that's not in the definitions. And so as Commissioner Hughes just said, it is a little vague and unclear what could all be included in that. And so we had suggested amending the definition of public art to be a bit broader. And we had suggested this wording of, you know, it could be a standalone art installation, or it could be art that's incorporated into other structures, which I think gets to kind of the spirit you were just saying, but maybe not quite everything you meant.
Indeed, yes. And I was thinking also of sensory playgrounds for children, have a lot of art and water and artistic water installations and things for sensory seeking children. And I know we're having more of an emphasis on playgrounds that serve all communities, so.
But we have to be
Yeah, there's
careful
art.
that we're not getting into the pros plan. You know, you can pull up any park in the park pros plan and it'll tell you what they're gonna be doing for the next 10 years. So.
Indeed, yeah, the suggestion is really just to allow for the things in the pros plan to come to fruition, because I felt that art didn't include all of the things in the pros plan. I'm happy to call for a vote, though. Can I call for a vote on this?
Well, no, you have to
Or
let
we have to
everybody talk.
discuss more? Sorry.
Give me-
I'll just somewhat restate. I think this better belongs in the definitions area. I appreciate the spirit of it and I support, you know, adding arts amenities to the definition. And I think that belongs in the definition section. So I'm inclined to vote no on the current motion.
Anything further, Commissioner Neese?
I agree with Commissioner Gibson, just keeping things clean and understandable. It's always frustrating as an architect to come across terms that are not defined, and how you deal with that as a professional can be confusing. So I would encourage the definition to be modified.
Okay, I think we kind of have a consensus on that,
Well,
so I'm
no,
happy to withdraw my
No,
motion.
no, it's Commissioner.
Yeah, if I
Do you
may,
want-
one of the things that I'm gonna kind of cross-pollinate here a little bit, associated with the Design Commission. The major push within the Design Commission associated with the Central City Plan had to always have the opportunity and consideration set having to do with art as part of physical structure. If there's a way to include materiality, rammed earth, have the ability of having shadow lines, textures, those sorts of things. To me, very much that's included within the idea of arts and amenities. Thank you very much for expanding that even further with art. Water amenities, roofing amenities, paving amenities, those sorts of things. But I think, to me, the idea of public art is narrow, appropriately so. But I think that arts amenities will incite conversation, and then I think that there's the opportunity to broaden the interpretation in line with Central City Development Design Commission consistent requests to be able to incorporate art into the actual physical structure of buildings. It's just a way to expand the spectrum a bit.
All right, if there's nothing further, call the vote, please. The vote.
So we have a motion to amend the code 19.05.050, section C5 to add and art amenities after public art.
That's correct.
And I have a second by Neese. The vote, Vice Chair Gibson,
No.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
No.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
and Commissioner Neese.
No.
Motion fails.
I'm going to ask the commissioners if anyone thinks that it's necessary or they want to make a motion to add staff's alternative, or whether that's really recommended or necessary. If nobody.
I'd like to make a motion to include staff's alternative. I think it encompasses the spirit of what I was proposing.
Okay,
I liked amenities better, but I'll take the staff version. I think either way, it's important to have it in there.
can you please make a motion to add and say the language that you want to include?
Okay. I'd like to make a motion for MICC 1905, Section C, Item 5. Oh, no, it's not that. I'd like to make a motion to add the following sentence to the definition for public art in MICC 1916-010 as written by staff. Public art can be implemented in standalone art installations or incorporated into other structures.
Is there a second?
I second.
Any discussion on this? Please call the vote.
I have a motion by Hughes, excuse me, who made the second in this case? Perez, thank you. To add staff's alternative to the definition of public art. Public art can be implemented in standalone art installations or incorporated into other structures.
Yes.
Thank you. Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
No.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Gibson.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Thank you.
Okay, we'll be moving down now. It looks like we're to 19.05050 C8 parking.
One question.
Yep.
We don't need a motion to direct staff for the remainder of that item, correct?
I think if there's consensus from the commission to direct us generally to prepare something that's redrafted or that combines a couple of amendments or something along those lines, it does not need to be a formal motion, but we need to see head nods or thumbs up or something to indicate that there's generally agreement among the commission to do that.
Would it be easier just to do a motion, just so we have it documented, maybe?
I'm agnostic, it doesn't really matter.
Well, that's interesting because I want to make a motion to have the commission join or follow in the Parks Recreation Commission recommendation about joint art. So I could save that till later and we just keep going.
That's fine.
All right. So next one, we're at number 8. This looks like mine, so I'll make the motion.
Did we address? Okay, sorry.
We're on major amendments log 11.
Oh, yeah.
Is everybody ready?
Yes.
I move to amend MICC 19.05 Park Zone C8 parking by adding the language, quote, for park-related uses, end quote, after parking.
Second.
So the reason I put this in is that there has been a history of the parks, especially under the public institution zone, being used or proposed to be used for parking for non-park related uses. And that is how the parks used to be regulated, even though they sat in the residential zone. It was that a development had to be for a park-related use. Now, the staff's comments, I understand they're saying, well, what about Youth and Family Services who works in the Luther Burbank building, you know, which is non-conforming? But as far as I'm concerned, I think that is a park-related use because there's city staff working in a park building that, you know, ideally when they build a new city hall, they won't be there. So I don't like to have something that applies to all of our parks that suggests that you can have non-park related parking. I mean, that's a parking lot is really inconsistent with a park, except that it's a necessary amenity, I guess you would call it. But the key is that it be related for park-related uses. And I don't think that that would exclude people who park there and work for Youth and Family Services, at least right now, temporarily. That's my position. Any discussion? Anybody else? Okay. Oh, yeah.
I appreciate the spirit of the amendment. I'm wondering if rather than saying for park-related uses, because I can think of a couple other examples of not necessarily park-related uses, like parking for the farmer's market or, you know, other things. And I think we need a really comprehensive evaluation of what the city uses parking for at all parks in order to really understand what we're excluding here. So I wonder if we can achieve the same purpose by stating parking except not for transit-oriented purposes. And then we wouldn't be contradicting ourselves in other parts of the code because there's so many other things we use parking for besides parks.
Well, I'm not sure that's true, but I mean, the farmer's market doesn't use the parks for parking. Does use the bathrooms.
They use the parking lot for loading and unloading.
If you said parking for permitted uses, would you achieve what you want?
Well, no, because somebody going to use a park doesn't need to get a permit. There's not going to be a permit related use. It's just that people who park and use, you know, parking lot should be designed for park users. And if you need a parking lot for transit-oriented development, you know, like Kite Hill, that was the famous example. You don't do it in a park. And staff's one concern was, well, what about the city employees or Youth and Family Services that are currently working in the Luther Burbank buildings because City Hall is closed? Hopefully that's not permanent, but I think that those are park related. They're working in a building in the park. If worst case scenario, the city manager could allow it under the temporary use. So, I mean, I don't think that the city or the council has, you know, any real plans to use or certainly build parking lots in parks. I just think that because of the history, I wanted that clarification.
Can I make one more?
Yes, Commissioner.
Did you want to speak to this? I'm thinking also there's a daycare behind us. And if I sit here long enough, I'm not trying to be argumentative, really. I just, I can't support this as written, but I could support something that just specifically addressed the issue of not providing transit-oriented parking
Okay.
in parks.
This is not a park. This will not be part of the park zone. The Mercer Island Community Center and that parking lot will not be part of the park zone. So, I mean, people who park there and go to the daycare will certainly be able to continue to do so because they won't be in a park. Anything? No. Please call the roll.
Okay, I have a motion by Thompson, seconded by Gibson to amend MICC 19.05.050, section C8 to add 4 park-related uses after parking. Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Hughes.
Nay.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, the next one is we are in paragraph 9 of section C.
I believe that was already approved in the minor.
Oh, thank you. Never mind. And then there was another minor one. Oh, no, yes, we accepted the staff's alternative. All right. Turning on. Now I have section 12. This is to add multi-purpose facilities. I believe this is Commissioner Accuses, is that right?
Again, yep.
All right, I'm gonna let you make the motion then.
I'd like to propose a motion to the development, oh, wait. That's- sorry. Labeled differently in the matrix. Wait, what is it 6 in the,
It's log 1.
oh, on the different, okay. I'd like to propose a motion to make an amendment to the development regulations for the park zone, section C. Please add a new item 12, multi-purpose facilities.
Is there a second?
I second.
Seconded by Commissioner Perez. So the motion by Commissioner Accuse is to amend MICC 19.05.050, section C 12, C, to add a section 12, multi-purpose facilities. It was seconded by Commissioner Perez. And I think Commissioner Accuse, you should speak to it first.
I just felt that it was missing because we have several multi-purpose facilities in our parks already. And I thought it would make the code more consistent with existing use. For example, the boathouse might also have concessions associated with it per the pros plan. That's a multi-purpose building that isn't covered by recreation or maintenance.
Staff thinks it's not necessary. I don't think it's anyway bad. There are multi-purpose facilities. Any other comments, Commissioner Neese? You're architect.
Sorry, being a code analyst here, it seems vague to me. What you said, Commissioner Hughes, about concession stands is potentially a use. Are we trying to identify things that are missing from the uses that we want to include? Because they could become, from what I'm hearing from the city's comments, they can be combined in any way you want. But if there's something missing, then is that what we're trying to identify here?
Yeah, the idea is that there are some items in the pros plan that might not be listed in this list here, but hasn't been public debate or discussion of them yet. They would still have to go through a permitting process and a public process. So it is kind of a catch-all for things that are in the pros plan that might not be covered by our list. I don't know that we've done a fully comprehensive evaluation of everything in the pros plan and make sure there's a matching item on this list. That's the purpose.
Okay, so a catch-all for those.
including some items that may not currently be allowed, like concessions.
Mhm.
And not saying that this is not a suggestion that there should be concessions allowed in every park. I don't think we should add concessions to this list. It's just there's minor additions to facilities like that that are mentioned in the pros plan.
So somebody reading the code, if they wanted to put concessions in, would they be able to come to a determination reading this that that would be permitted?
I think it opens the door for that if it's permitted.
Well, Allison,
course,
I
sorry.
read staff's comment, you felt that it was unnecessary. And of course, section E, building size is, really the guts of a regulatory limit that we're getting at. It may be redundant, but it doesn't in any way change section E, does it?
No, I mean, I don't have any serious problems with this addition. It just, I think like Commissioner Nee said, it is a little bit vague and we felt like probably that's already well covered by the list of uses that's already there, but I don't think it's a terrible amendment. It won't cause any problems per se, other than just potentially being a little bit vague or unclear.
All right, anything further? Yep. Please call the roll.
The motion by Accused, seconded by Perez to amend MICC 19.05050, section C, adding new item 12, multipurpose facilities. Chair Thompson,
Yes.
Commissioner Perez. Vice Chair Gibson,
Nay.
Commissioner Accused,
Aye.
and Commissioner Neese.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay. Moving on now, we are to section 1905-060 Park Zone Development Standards. And we are, the first one we get to is B, setbacks. Major amendment, log 12. It looks like, this is actually, one or either. There's the staff. And there's mine. I believe that the staff is better written. So that's the motion I'm going to propose. So I propose a motion that amends MICC 1905-060 Parks Zone Development Standards, section B4, that states parking adjacent to property that is zoned R 8.4, R 9.6, R 8.12, and R 15 shall have a 20-foot setback. Is that correct? R 8.12?
That is a typo, I believe. It should be R 8.4.
And then R 12, right?
Yeah, right, R 8.4 and R 12.
All right.
And are you recommending the staff alternative? Because what you just read was what you had
Yes.
originally proposed, I
Yes,
believe.
I just did the staff alternative.
I think you just read the original proposal that you had placed, that you had put in the matrix.
Did I? Okay, we have A, which is yours?
The proposal's on screen.
The sub A, 3 sub A.
Okay, I'll go with that. Sub A is staff alternative.
Mhm.
All right, do I need to withdraw that motion? No, all right. Here is the motion. I move that section MICC 19.05.060, section B be amended, section 4 to read, parking areas located adjacent to property that is zoned R 8.4, R 9.6, R 12, or R 15 require a 20-foot setback. Is there a second?
I second it.
I pointed this out in my email. I think that a parking lot, even though it doesn't really have much height, is a pretty intense use if you live right next to it, especially when they're open from very early in the morning to sometimes late at night. You have a lot of people come and going. Living next to the Lid Park, you can get young people and stuff. And so I don't know that there's any parking lots that don't have a setback, from the R zoned. I mean, I don't want to make any of the parking lots non-conforming, but
Yeah, we haven't analyzed that, but that is something we can look into if the commission would like that information before the next meeting.
I think there needs to be some setback. It's not like, where your neighbor has their driveway and it can be along the property line, but, you get a few cars a day. Some of the parks get, quite a bit. And I'm trying to think of all the different parks, and I can't think of any that has a parking lot that's directly adjacent to our zone property. I doubt the
Can't
city
either,
would
but
build
there
one.
may be a small one that I'm not picturing.
Yeah, there might be some street end ones, but those are not part of the park zone. So that's why I thought about it. So I just don't think 20-foot. I'm trying to think, there's the south parking lot at Luther. The parking lot at Aubrey Davis Park, that's across the street from the houses. So I don't think that this would affect any of the parks. I mean, if you came back and said that that was a concern, but I don't think so. Anybody else have any questions? Yes, Commissioner Hughes?
Just a question of clarification. So the first item under setbacks, the following minimum setbacks apply 20 feet adjacent. If property zone are 8, 4, 9, 6, 12, 15, 21, et cetera. Is that setbacks just for buildings then? And doesn't apply to parking?
It's setbacks for all structures, and then there's the next, number 3 provides the exemptions, which include parking. So the proposal is to not include parking
okay.
as exempted for residential areas, adjacent residential areas.
Yes, Commissioner Perez.
Sorry, point of clarification, in the staff recommendation, the way that I'm reading this, and I'm trying to, again, kind of get a clear understanding. You've mentioned here, the following developments are exempt from setback requirements: fences, gates, culverts, trails, landscaping, furnishings, bollards, signs, kiosks, parking areas, and utilities, except as follows. So to me, that sounds like that's an exclusion that would, within those R zones, still require the setbacks for parking areas as explicitly called out. Is that not, am I misunderstanding that?
I mean, it's kind of a double negative sentence construction, which maybe makes this confusing now that you're pointing it out.
Yes.
So certain things are exempt and then certain things are accepted from that exemption, so they're not exempt. So yeah, parking areas located next to residential zones require a setback.
Yes, as I'm reading this, the difference between the section above and the section below is the MF2L, MF2, and MF3. So this would allow you to put parking within the setback when adjacent to those zones, but not when any of the R zones. So I think as written, it does make sense, and yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm kind of confused. So
Yeah.
is my amendment irrelevant? Or is it necessary? It is necessary. Okay. I thought that's how I read it. If
It's
nothing else,
differentiating between
it
the R
clarifies it.
zones and the MF zones.
Okay.
And it's requiring that 20-foot setback. Right?
It's differentiating from the R zones versus all other zones.
Right.
So basically you could have a parking lot right up on the property line for any other zone besides residential, is what this is saying.
Yes. Okay, any other further questions? Comments? Please call the roll.
Chair or, Mr. Hornsby, I just want to clarify that the words except as follows.
I was going to bring that up as well. I think the chair read 3A, but did not
Correct.
include except as follows in number 3 as well, which
And I think that
Would be
was the
necessary.
intention.
Yes, yes.
Okay.
All right.
I just wanted to make sure before we proceeded, so. Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Perez.
Aye.
Motion passes
Sorry, aye.
5-0.
Okay, we're moving on to page 3 now. We've done the signs and kiosks was a minor amendment. It's been done. We're to section D, trail standards. And we kind of have some dueling amendments. Let me just think about here. The first one is mine about including the shoulders in the trails, and then you have some about I'm sorry, let me see if I have this. I have mine 13 and then 21. Is that log 21?
Two.
Two, log 2. Um. Before we start with the motions, Allison, was the intent of the park zone as written that the 12-foot trail width limit included gravel shoulders or not?
I think the intent was just that it included the trail.
Just
and
the
The shoulders could be additional.
Well, the shoulders, I mean, if you have a gravel 12-foot shoulder, and trail and you add shoulders, that's part of the trail. Same with,
I don't
Hey.
think that was defined or clarified here, so it would have been difficult to parse out.
okay, it's interesting because it was such a contentious issue, on the Aubrey Davis, trail. So, I think maybe we need some clarification going forward. Just trying to look at it. I get the idea that the staff would like discretion in some ways. But why don't we just start with mine? And it's the simplest, and then we'll go, because yours has some more. So I move that MICC 19.05.060 D 1 be amended to state that trails shall not exceed 12 feet in width, including shoulders, with the including shoulders being the new language. Is there a second?
Second.
So there's a motion by the chair to amend section D stating that trails shall not exceed 12 feet in width, including shoulders, and that was seconded by Vice Chair Gibson. I kind of discussed this a little bit in the email I sent out. There are a lot of it was very contentious through the Lid Park, whether to, because gravel shoulders, packed gravel shoulders are impervious surface and they definitely add to it. One of the things that I don't like about gravel shoulders is I don't find any utility in them. People with dogs tend not to walk on them. They have the right of way on a mixed use path. They're the pedestrians. Bicyclists don't like them. I mean, I understand cutting back the vegetation, on the trail edges, they do that, but they did do the gravel shoulders east of the town center. They put in the gravel shoulders and then they let them grow in. They become vegetation. They didn't do them through the Lid Park, because there was a lot of objection to it. If we're gonna go with a 12-foot trail width, then it should include the shoulders. If the new zone is gonna say they want 2-foot shoulders, then it should be 16 feet. It should be a 16-foot width, because that's what it is, you know, so. The other thing I pointed out that we kind of learned, east of the town center, with King County, you know, they were gonna do 14-foot paved. It's really expensive, to pour, concrete or cement, paths and build the, gravel shoulders. And then, of course, we found out that when we were doing the Island Crestway, bike path for the missing gap, that the trail in front of the mayor's house is only 10 feet unless they took down the privacy hedges. So 10 feet became okay. I think 12 feet is good. That's the standard without shoulders. You can always put grass, you can cut the vegetation back. So that's what I thought. I think 16 feet in a park is pretty extreme. Any comments?
Just addressing the city's comment, which seems quite valid about emergency vehicles. Would we, Dan, would we amend this to say, except additional width may be permitted for emergency response vehicles?
I thought that there was an exception for that. Because if you need 20 feet for emergency vehicle, I don't understand how you're gonna get that with a 12-foot path and gravel shoulders. We had that issue with a performing arts center in Mercerdale Park, and that required paved 20 feet. So if you're gonna put in a structure that needs that type of access, it had to be 20-foot paved. So I thought there was an exception. I didn't see it for emergency. I mean, what is the city gonna do? Emergency, I mean, if you have a 12-foot, even with shoulders.
I mean, I think it kind of hinges on what you're defining as a shoulder here, which was not a term that was originally included. Are we just talking about a clear area of grass or other ground cover or vegetation? Or are we talking about, you know, a constructed gravel shoulder, which, you know, you have raised some concerns about the constructed gravel shoulders in Aubrey Davis. That's not something that's mentioned or defined in here anywhere else.
Well, I mean, the staff comment that Commissioner Neese brought up is the city is saying, well, what do we do if we need minimum clearance for emergency
We need
response
minimum
vehicles?
clearance for, you know, ambulances and fire trucks to be able to get in if someone has a heart attack or whatever.
Right, I know that, but how do you
And,
do that on a
but,
12-foot
so,
trail?
you know, we keep clear areas along trails to provide that access.
Yes,
We're not really calling them shoulders, but they are areas that are kept clear, that are adjacent to the side of a trail.
right. I mean, that's just vegetation clearing.
So I don't know, when we introduce this term of shoulders, I think it just creates some confusion about, well, what does that mean?
Well, my confusion is 12 foot just a kind of a flexible amorphous term about how wide a trail? I mean,
I
just
think
12
it
feet?
refers to the width of the trail surface, whether that's concrete or pavement or packed gravel.
So it does include whatever it is. It's
Yeah.
12 feet maximum width. I mean, if we're gonna get
May I
into,
comment?
yeah,
This is in part why I proposed the other amendments, because just to clarify, all of the language for my amendments comes from WashDOT code. And the idea is to be consistent with that code, meaning as written, it could easily be interpreted that 12-foot includes the clear space around. And I wanted to ensure that trails were a minimum of 10 feet wide, excluding the shoulder. Otherwise, they won't work for quite a few people. And especially multi-use trails won't work if they're smaller than that.
yeah, that makes sense.
There was a document that you guys linked to that showed a bunch of trails that I looked through, and there were a number of them, Luther Burbank Park, et cetera, that that don't meet that standard? How is that? Are they just existing? All new trails are 10 feet minimum?
They're not.
No, you mean they're narrower than that?
Yeah.
There's a lot of existing, you know, like single track walking paths that are fairly narrow. There was a very long, extensive presentation and discussion with the PRC about this topic because Mercer Island has a huge variety of types of trails that serve different purposes. And they include different kinds of structures like bridges and stairways and things along those lines. And it was difficult to figure out how to create a standard that would kind of be one size fits all for all of those things. The PRC struggled with this for a while. They had talked about having different categories and things like that. And it quickly became very complicated. And I think the city manager was recommending sticking with something simple and that creating a trail hierarchy could be something done as part of either the bike and ped facilities plan or other like park master planning projects that can get into the more specific needs of, you know, the various facilities rather than trying to address that at this higher level.
Yes, that's right. The new waterfront trail in Luther Burbank that they had to move up for, I think that's 6 feet gravel. I think that they make a distinction between mostly walking
I
gravel.
believe within critical
Okay.
areas, trail widths are limited to 6 feet in another part of the code.
Okay.
Yeah, and this is for shared use trails. I thought there was a definition for that. Trails that would allow pedestrian and bicycle and potentially horse use, which would be the bigger trails.
I don't think this standard makes that clarification.
Are you referring to an existing definition in the development code for shared use trail?
I thought I was, but I could be referring to a definition in the WashDOT code. We're not even on that motion right now, though. So my comment was really just to clarify why shoulders was put up there and why I'm concerned about supporting the motion that's on the table right now. Because if they can't exceed 12 feet, including shoulders, then you're not going to be able to have much of a shoulder if the minimum trail width for safe use on a shared use trail needs to be 10 feet to be safe. So speaking strictly to the motion that's on the table, I'm not supportive of it because I'm concerned that if we include shoulders in the 12 feet, we won't have enough room to make a safe trail.
Anything else? Anybody else have any comments?
If I may.
Yes.
Including the shoulders with a packed gravel trail. I mean, again, it seems like from a constructability point of view, for variations in grade, there's going to be horizontal movement associated with that. And I think I'm also feeling that this is going to create an unnecessary constraint to the type of fabrication that could be used in trails in the park zone. So I'm also leaning towards not including shoulders. It's the usable width, I think could vary significantly once you have the gradation associated with the usable gravel top, if that makes sense. So I mean, the shoulders, the gradation from the gravel would be very, very hard to control to keep that within 12 feet without significantly taking the usable surface down as you're moving over grade. So I also have an issue with that from a constructability point of view.
Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
I think listening to this, I'm having trouble understanding really what where the trail starts and stops for in terms of whether it's paved, gravel, or both. I think, and I'm sure anybody reading this is going to have the same difficulty interpreting what this actually reads. I think I would propose that we have staff add a definition for trail that truly defines where the boundary starts and stops and adds that to the definition section and then leaves item 1 as originally written. Then you'll have a clearer, what is in the 12 feet and So.
Yeah.
As part of the adoption of the open space zone, there was a new definition for trail that was added to the development code. I don't have it in front of me. But we can pull that up so you can take a look if you'd like.
So are you suggesting that we, like withdraw the motion and reserve this?
And ask staff to add a definition for us to define trail, so we know.
Okay,
is-
because, you know, as it's written, it's confusing. It says that trail shall not exceed 12 feet in width. I mean, I'm a lawyer. It wouldn't be very hard for me to go in there and say, it doesn't say 4 feet of gravel. It says 12 feet, pull out your tape measure. Like you said, I mean, if it was grass or some other vegetation, you'd sit there, that's not a trail, but if somebody built a gravel shoulder, that's gonna be 12 feet. So how about is that okay, Allison? If, you know, give you guys some time to think about this?
Yes, and we can revisit those definitions that we already have and see if there's any appropriate language there and work with our counterparts in the Parks Department to try to draft something that brings a little more clarity to what that width standard applies to, you know, is it the actual trail surface? If it includes some kind of type of shoulder, what is that and how is that defined?
All right, great. Because, you know, this has been a contentious issue in the past. So you know what I'm gonna do, Deb? I'm gonna withdraw my motion.
Okay, I need Counselor Gibbs, or excuse me, Commissioner Gibson to withdraw his second as well.
I withdraw my second.
And then just for clarification, I just want to confirm that we have consensus by the commission for, as Mr. Hornsby is writing or was writing a comment up there, to speak with our Parks Department and see if there's an existing definition for trails to bring back to you at the next meeting.
Yes.
Thank you.
So my question to you, Commissioner Ackes, do you want to hold off on your proposed amendment 2 until we get that clarification next time? What do you want to make?
I don't know that that's necessary
Okay.
because to my understanding, the staff intent with the word trail and whatever definition they come up with, or whether they come up with a new definition, it's going to be the main deck of the trail, side to side with the main trail material. And I think that all of these WashDOT specifications, these are directly from WashDOT, would apply to that definition. So if that's a safe assumption, I think we could move forward. But if others aren't comfortable until we get that definition, I'm fine to hold off on those.
I'm gonna leave it up to you. I think that before we get into the motion, what I'm worried about is, as they said, we have a lot of trails that are not 10 feet on the island. And I know you put in the shared use trail, so we gotta get. Now we're getting into what the Parks and Recreation Commission didn't want to do, is where they're getting into, you know, different variations of trail. How about we just save trails for next meeting?
Oh, we've got a definition right here. An off-street path for paddle. It's not my place to read it.
An off-street path for pass. Oh, that doesn't tell us if it's a mixed use or not, though.
Yeah, I think the intent of what we're asking is to define the boundaries of what a trail is. And so I think we'd want to update this step
How
or
to
include
measure
a
the width of
definition.
the trail, basically.
Yeah, what's
Like, what's
included
the
in that.
engineering element that is the deck of the trail?
Yeah.
Right.
I might suggest, usable surface, something along that line, in terms of the trail.
Or what is constructed. I kind of, and then so through the Lid Park, people made a big stink about it because it would have taken 2 feet of the grass ball field all along it. And they sat there and said, well, I mean, if you need to, get off the trail, you can get off on the grass and it's impervious surface. And so it ran into the no new net impervious surface. So I think let's have staff come back and maybe also consider telling us that, are we talking about a mixed use bike pedestrian trail? Are we talking about something through a critical areas? Are we talking about just a walking path?
Okay, it sounds like folks aren't ready, so I'm not going to make a motion on these items. And I would like to ask that staff clarified also what a shared use would be if you have a definition, and if you
Yeah.
don't, then we should add a definition for it.
We'll try to pull any relevant definitions about trails. and
Thank you.
Provide those in the agenda bill, and we can also make a recommendation about kind of how to handle this and whether we need to add to a definition or we need to add something in here about how the width should be measured. We can provide some language for that.
Thank you.
Okay, now we're to E, building size, major amendment 14. That is also shared with amendment 15. So I'll make the motion on 14 and then explain that. I move to amend MICC 19.04 Park Zone Development Standards, Section E1, building size. In the table for multi-purpose facilities, delete the 3,500 square foot gross maximum area floor limit for multi-purpose facilities and add language, quote, gross floor area limit for multi-purpose facilities shall be the combined gross floor area limit for each building type in the building. End quote. Is there a second?
Second.
I don't want to get rid of the multi-purpose building in Island Park, but this kind of makes the same mistake that was made in the original draft, is where we're taking the largest structure. And then because we want it to be conforming, we're making that the limit, the regulatory limit, which is too large. We don't want 3,500 square foot buildings in the rest, really. I mean, I can't imagine in the other parks, but we do want to preserve this one. So I'm just using the technique that was used for Luther Burbank, where we take this building and we essentially exempt it. And then we just say that for any type of multi-purpose facility going forward, whatever it is from this chart here, you get 500 square feet. You know, if it's a bathroom and maintenance facility like in the Lid Park, you got 500 and 500. If you throw in a concession stand, you know, you're going to get another 500. You're never going to get to 3,500. I mean, that is big. And it's too big to have as a limit or a standard. So that's my thinking on this motion, because the next one is simply going to take the building in Island Park and add it to the list of buildings that are essentially exempt. Any discussion or questions?
I have a
Yeah.
comment. We have a couple of buildings that are larger than 5,000 square feet, existing buildings. And I also don't want to hamstring the city, particularly as they're engaging in this concept of building a new city hall. I think it's fine as is, personally. I don't think 3,500 square feet is enormous. And who knows if there's a community center or a pool facility or something in the future that folks want. Seems like not a huge building to me. That's my only comment.
Any other?
Just a question. Is it feasible that you could have a building larger than 3,500 square feet if you were to combine, I mean, let's say you did 4 picnic shelters? Would that not then be allowed under this code to be 4,800 square feet?
You know, that's pretty theoretical. They
Yeah.
I mean, they have the picnic shelter in the Lid Park. I'm guessing that's 1,200 square feet while we have it here.
Yeah.
They're not cheap. I can't imagine the city manager building 4 of them together. Or why you would, but all I'm trying to do is not make a 3,500 square foot building allowable in other parks. I mean, if you took all of these, and, kind of combined it, you might not get to 3,500 square feet, and they're not going to. So it preserves the Island Park building. It allows the city to combine facilities in a multi-purpose building if they want. They get the additional square footage. And, one of the other things we have to remember here, we have a no new net impervious surface limit. And really, the main exemption from that is the pros plan. So I'm pretty familiar with the pros plan. There's no 3,500 square foot buildings. There's a few 500, like a bathroom here and there, but even those hopefully will go into existing impervious surface. So I just don't want a multi-purpose facility to have a 3,500 square foot limit in any park. I don't think it's necessary because, if this wouldn't be here, if we didn't already have a 3,500 square foot building in Island Park, we wouldn't have this here. They would have just sat there and said it's a combined value. So that's my thinking. Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
Yeah, I agree. I think what this solves for is the scenario where if there's a restroom and a park maintenance facility combined into one building, this code would allow for a 3,500 square foot building in that scenario, whereas this fixes that and would cap it at 1,000 square feet. So I think it's an appropriate fix to what Chair Thompson's recommending, and so I'm inclined to support it.
Anybody else?
Just
Commissioner Neese?
a question on history. I'm not as familiar with this as you guys are. So the pros plan has no proposal for any sort of large buildings, and how far forward looking is this in terms of years?
The pros plan?
Is,
10?
so there's nothing on the horizon that,
There's a boathouse with potential concessions.
Which park is that?
Luther Burbank.
Well, that's the existing building.
We're
Right?
talking about adding things. I don't know.
Oh,
They haven't designed it yet.
I thought it was gonna be in the existing boiler building.
The boiler building has just been renovated and I think, yeah, the use of that is open. It could be some kind of concession for like, say, kayak rentals or something like that.
Yeah.
I don't think the city's made a determination on exactly what will happen there.
I guess my point is that I'm assuming we want some kind of a limit, and I feel like the amendment as written doesn't give any limit. Because you could just combine any number of uses and any number of buildings, and in this scenario for, let's say, the boathouse, because I think that's a good example. They could have a concessions and multiple restrooms, I think we should have a limit. So if that motion did pass, I would want to suggest that we add another line item that said there's a limit to the number of buildings, because I just heard Commissioner Gibson say it would max out at 1,000, but I don't think that's true as written. I think it could max out, there's no max.
I wondered about this issue as well, like, what if you had 3 different recreational facilities, like you have a basketball court and a locker room and a dance room? Can then it then add up to something larger than what had the initial limit here of 3,500 square feet?
But there's nothing like that in the pros plan, and then you run
Yeah.
into the impervious.
I mean, I agree, there's other things that would
Yeah.
potentially restrict it.
I mean,
Well,
that's why the no new net impervious surface was such a key policy that people thought for so long and it really is incorporated into the pros plan. Like, for example, people wanted pickleball courts, and we said, well, rather than paving green space in Luther Burbank, repurpose the tennis courts, which they did. It was expensive, but they did. And that's the thinking that, we tried to do with that. So anyway, we have a pending motion. So I think we've discussed it. Why don't we call the roll?
I have a motion by Thompson, seconded by Gibson to amend section E, building site subsection 1, multipurpose facilities, removing the term 3,500 square feet and adding gross floor area limit for multipurpose facilities shall be the combined gross floor area limit for each building type in the building. Commissioner Hughes,
Nay.
Commissioner Neese,
Nay.
Commissioner Perez,
Nay.
Chair Thompson,
Yes.
and Vice Chair Gibson.
Yes.
Motion fails 3-2.
Okay, the next one was my major, it's amendment 15, but considering that the prior motion failed, there's no reason to move that building.
I think you skipped, it wasn't highlighted there, but the concession stand, added building type, that's actually log 4, just wasn't in green.
Oh, all right. This is yours, Commissioner Acuse, so I'll let you make the motion.
Purpose of adding this is just to leave that opportunity open for the boathouse at Luther Burbank Park. If it's not on the list, it wouldn't be allowed.
Did you want to make the motion?
Oh, sorry.
Get the purpose first. I'd like to make a motion to add concession stand to the list of allowed uses at 500 square feet, building types at 500 square feet.
Second, anybody?
I'll second.
Sorry.
I'll second.
All right, any questions or discussions? My concern is that
Chair
concessions.
Thompson, I'm sorry.
Oh.
Staff had a comment.
Oh,
I
yeah.
just had a quick comment. I just wanted to clarify that concession stands are included in the definition for recreational facilities. So and rec facilities actually have the same gross floor area limit and height limit as proposed for concession stand in this amendment. So do with that what you will.
Right, and my comment, I was gonna come out and point that, again, in the pros plan, concession stands and commercial activities were a very contentious issue, very limited. The pros plan specifically identifies where they may go. My concern is if we put it in here, it suggests that concession stands can go other than those very, very limited areas like you were talking about, Luther Burbank.
Can you clarify where that was? I'm sorry, I didn't, wasn't able to follow.
It's in the definitions section. Recreational facilities include concession stands.
Okay, Commissioner Perez, would you be fine with me withdrawing the motion? I'd like to withdraw the motion then. I'm sorry, I missed that.
Second that withdrawal.
Okay. Motion withdrawn. Moving on, we're now to building size section 3. I believe this is Kate, Commissioner Acuse. We have log 2. And it's major. I think that this is to add recycling center at Mercer Dale Park.
Yeah, so I'm proposing that we adopt one of two motions, and I don't, staff can maybe direct how we should do this. And the reason is I went on GIS and measured that building and it's larger than 500 square feet. So it either needs to be exempt or it needs to be called something else.
But is it a multi-purpose facility with the bathrooms and the sorting building?
That's what I figured.
It is.
I don't know.
It's not a maintenance building. Strictly.
It's currently used for storage for the most part, but it also has restrooms. So it would be considered a multi-purpose facility.
Is it 1,000 square feet? Do you know?
I think it was like 2,000. I sent Carson a note.
It's a little under 2,000 square feet. I think it's between 1,900 and 2,000.
Well, so it would be technically non-conforming if it has two, so I think Commissioner Accu's raised a pretty good point there. We add it to the non-conforming list of buildings.
Well, it is conforming.
It is
because
conforming.
Two uses.
So
It has
So it's
two
considered-
uses, but it's 2,000 square feet.
If you
But now it's
consider
a
it,
multi-purpose facility, which is a 3,500 square foot.
but we just said we're not having 3,500. Oh, we did.
Yeah,
That one.
no, you
That
guys
amendment
voted
failed.
to have them.
Pass.
Okay, then I would like to propose, I would like to withdraw my suggestion. What do you call it when we suggest something to you, but it's not a motion?
You just withdraw that proposal.
What's that? I'd like to withdraw the proposal to the table, to footnote the table with that item 1 and okay, so that's one action. And then the second action would be, I'd like to propose amending building size item 3E1, shoot my screen. Adding recycling center at Mercer Dale Park to the list of exemptions.
Well, if it's a multi-purpose building, it's already conforming. It's 3,500 square feet. Now
Did I
we
do
can
that
have those
wrong?
everywhere.
I meant to keep my footnote.
Huh?
Did I mean to keep my footnote?
Okay,
There's no issue.
Commissioner
Okay,
Gibson, I
I'll
want to make
withdraw
sure
that.
that you're, yeah, so they're capturing the entire discussion. Thank you.
I'll
You wanna make-
withdraw that motion.
okay.
My apologies, Deb.
You didn't have a motion. You
I
were just,
didn't?
no,
I thought I made a motion.
no, these were just,
Do we need a break
Discussion.
at 7?
it might
There's
be a good
no-
time for a short break. Actually,
Aye.
I think the chair needs to call for a break.
All right, why don't we call for a break? I've got 8:03. Should we meet back at 8:15, 12-minute break? Is that enough for everyone?
That works for me. Thank you.
Okay. Making good progress. We're getting Okay, it is 8:15. The meeting is back in session. We're continuing on with the park zone. I think we are to page 4. F, parking. And this was my proposed amendment. Log 16. But I'm wondering, do we need this? Because we already passed the motion that says parking for park-related uses. Is this just redundant? If I put parking in the park zone shall be limited to park-related uses? We've already done that, haven't we?
I agree that it's probably redundant.
Okay. Then we'll move on. Now we're to impervious surface. This is section G. The first one is, okay. Well, I think Commissioner Acuse and I both kind of have similar ones. Section C. So this is major amendment log 5. Let's think about,
Chair,
yes.
before we move on, I just want to clarify, let me share my screen one moment. I wanted to clarify that Commissioner Hughes it's confirmed that she wanted to take her proposed amendments back for the recycling center. And
I had recorded they were both withdrawn and we're not moving forward.
Confirmed.
Yes, that's right. Let's see. I had existing trails and you wanted to take out public trails, right? Yeah, well,
that was kind of like
trying to just, give me a second here. Let me bounce this off before I do a motion. Impervious surface, that includes gravel. If we take out public trails, that would make all our trails non-conforming, right? I mean, there need to,
I don't think,
I like the enthusiasm, but
this is the exemption list, so it doesn't necessarily make anything conforming or not.
It could make
conforming, right?
them,
right, so like, that's just where we have the emergency vehicle lanes.
I'm happy to withdraw that one. I agree with the one.
Okay,
I think that's easier.
then I will do my motion. This is my proposed motion to MICC 19.05.060 section G, impervious pervious surface. Section C. The motion is to add the language existing public trails to the language public trails.
Second.
Okay. Any discussion on that?
So I'm clear on this. New public trails would be not exempt from the impervious surface based on this.
No new net.
Correct.
Impervious
It would-
surface,
yeah,
right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So, I mean, if, for example, an example would be Luther Burbank used to have a trail from, the swimming area bathrooms to the docks along the shore. And it started falling apart and the Department of Ecology didn't really want it there. So that was returned to, I guess, littoral lands by the lake, and then they rebuilt the trail maybe 10 or 20 feet up the hill, not right next to the lake. So that wouldn't have been new net impervious surface. And I'm just trying to think, is this going to constrict, is there any great plans that the Parks Department has for new
We
trails in the
Did
parks?
see a couple of trails in the pros plan that would be new trail segments that could be restricted by this.
I thought the pros plan was exempt.
I think it's somewhat unclear because it says that things that go through a master plan or a similar public process can be exempt, but it does not specifically say that the pros plan counts as one of those public processes.
May I make a comment?
Yes.
One of the reasons I support this amendment is because I think if we're going to put new trails, they should go through a master planning process. And it should be island-wide. That's just a personal opinion, and maybe part of the pedestrian and bicycle facilities discussion. I think a blanket exception for trails is kind of a little too open-ended for me, especially because our parks are already so fragmented.
I agree. I'm looking at the impervious surface one, and it reads that no new net impervious surface is permitted unless it has been included in an adopted park master plan or similar planning document that includes a public process and city council approval. I mean, that's the pros plan, and the pros plan actually incorporated quite a few of the Aubrey Davis, Luther Burbank master plans. So that's already exempt. And so what we were talking about is new trails in addition to those in the pros plan, which personally, I'm not sure that would be done. I think the pros plan would control that. So that's why I put the existing public trails. I didn't think that it would impact the master plans, the pros plans, where we really hash this out. It would exempt all the existing trails. So just that clarification.
The only thing I could potentially see this impacting, I don't know how realistic it is, but potential would be if a small trail segment, like a small connector trail, was added to the CIP, but was not included in one of these bigger, in the pros plan or a master plan. I don't know if the CIP itself would count as one of these plans that has public engagement and council approval. It is approved by the council. But, you know, potentially you could have a smaller project that's just added to the CIP without being part of a larger master plan or pros plan.
We talked with the staff at the Parks Department, and there are a few examples of something like this. So for example, there's some planned improvements to waterfront at Luther Burbank Park. And as part of that, there's a new portion of trail that's proposed to be added. From my understanding, it's not included in the park master plan, but it is included in the CIP and also referenced in the pros plan. So there's sort of a gray area here as to, you know, it may be referenced in the pros plan, but it's not necessarily, the pros plan is not necessarily the document that approved that project, if that makes sense.
Well, it kind of does. And to be honest, I've been a proponent over the years that if you have a master plan and you're going to do something beyond the master plan, you amend the master plan. That's why you have them. It's not very hard. If you're going to go up to the council and say, hey, you know, we're going to add this to the CIP, here's a small amendment to the master plan or to the pros plan. Although I don't think it sounds like it's really necessary. I drafted this in a way that I thought all the existing trails and look, the Parks Department could always go find impervious surface to remove if they wanted. It's no new net impervious surface, and I think we've got all the trails we need. And then all the ones in the pros plan, some, you know, are good and some are bad, but they're in there. I think that those would be allowed. So that's why I proposed it. I'm sorry, anybody else have any? Commissioner Neese?
Mainly just thinking about things you mentioned about restricting the city and maintenance, and is there any carve out for small alterations necessary?
Another example is Wildwood Park. There are some trails, a project there that, well, first of all, Wildwood Park is just a small dog park, more or less. It's a grass area for dogs. Then there's an open space area. There's a couple trail improvements that are planned. One is a trail that's around the perimeter of the park. And then I think another trail, a portion of trail that is proposed to be added to the open space portion of that park. So there's not a master plan for Wildwood Park, but those projects are referenced in the CIP and also in the pros plan again. So it's a similar situation, but that's another example where there's not a master plan available.
But there is the pros plan. I mean,
True.
being limited to the pros plan is the whole point of the pros plan. So I'm not, I didn't see the limit to it. I'm not saying that the city's gonna go crazy with trails, but we hashed this out in the pros plan, and then we're coming up here and we have a no new net impervious surface. And the trails, and of course, when we get to artificial turf, these are two things that I look at. I mean, what's the point of having a no new net impervious surface if we're gonna have exemptions that are wide open? And a trail, a paved trail, that's a huge amount. So that's why I don't think it restricts the city. I think you have your plans that we went through and we discussed, and everybody talked about trails. So that's my thinking.
Just, I mean, trails are expensive to build, so it doesn't seem like anybody's gonna go crazy building trails, just like people are not gonna go crazy building large 3,500 square foot multi-purpose buildings either. So I just wonder if we are restricting the city's ability to, just sort of normally operate and improve things that may need improving. I'm not against it, Dan. I'm just
Yeah, no,
thinking we also, I want the city to be able to operate in a normal fashion.
But at the same time, I would say, how hard is it for them to amend the pros plan? Or the park master plan? That's what a council does. If you go in there and say, we spent 2 years hashing out this pros plan and everybody, got it done, and then it was passed by the city. Are we gonna comply with it or not? I mean, this does not restrict the city from building more trails. Either A, they could remove impervious surface that isn't being used, that's just lying around. Or they can build within the CIP, the pros plan, and the park master plans. That's why we have them. I mean, we are talking about a park zone. I'm not talking about a trail through a commercial zone or something like that. That's my thinking about it. It's anything else? Can you please call the roll? Oh,
I have
yes,
one-
Carson.
I have one more comment about the amendments on the table here for public trails. If the intent here is to make it so that there is no exemption for trails, then I think it would be better just to remove trails from the list as opposed to exempting existing trails, because those are already existing. The impervious surface has already been added. So I don't think that there would be any effect from exempting existing trails. It'd be equivalent to exempting existing structures as a whole. That makes sense, or existing buildings as well too. But they've already been added, so I don't think that would have an effect.
So as the seconder, is your suggestion that we withdraw the original motion and make a new motion to strike public trails from the list?
If that is the intent, then yes, that would be recommended.
You okay with that?
I'm the
I think,
seconder, you're the first.
I think it results in the same.
All right,
Clear.
Deputy Clerk, I will withdraw my motion. I forget who seconded it.
I seconded it. I agree
All right.
to withdraw.
I will make a new motion. And that is to amend section G impervious surface to remove section C, public trails.
Second.
Any discussion or should we go to the vote? Please call the roll.
Okay, since you just stated that, I won't restate it.
Do you want me to restate it?
No, you, we're okay. Commissioner Neese,
Nay.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Accuse.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, moving on, page 5, we're now into the lighting sections.
We gotta do.
Hang on with,
Oh, did we do?
yeah.
Oh, we gotta use E.
Log 5.
Oh,
Yes, it was D, it's now a synthetic turf,
oh, geez, yeah,
Yeah.
all right.
a doozy.
It's really interesting.
These are logs 5 and 18, and I think that they're about the same, aren't they?
I think they're both just striping.
Yep. Okay, you want to, propose your motion?
I'd like to make a motion to strike what is now item D, synthetic turf athletic fields.
Seconded. Would you like to discuss your?
I would love to discuss it. Maybe recognized, Chair?
Yes.
Thank you. I work in water and land resources as my main day trader job. And synthetic turf athletic fields are abysmal for salmon. They have 6 ppdq, which is one of the leading causes of death for coho salmon, or a major cause of death in urban water pollution. They also contain phthalates and endocrine disruptors, which are not healthy for children. If exposed to for prolonged exposure. So I'm not a huge fan of turf athletic fields to start with, but I think for environmental reasons alone and water pollution alone, we don't want to be adding new turf fields without some really serious discussion about that and some master planning around that.
I agree, and I'd also like to point out what we're talking about here is exempting it completely, whereas the pros plan and the artificial turf in those plans is already exempt. And I agree, I think that it changes the character of a park. It takes a multi-use park that serves a lot of people and devotes it to a certain area. You know, it's unhygienic. People take their dogs on it. It's better at the schools where they're able to patrol it and do it. My son grew up playing football and lacrosse on the artificial turf. And it makes sense at the play fields where they're getting so much use in doing that. But I just think to exempt artificial turf beyond what is already allowed, which was a big fight in the pros plan, I think that we should just take it out like the public trails. Commissioner Neese, did you have something? No, Commissioner Perez?
I'm right there.
Please call the vote.
Okay, I have a motion by Commissioner Hughes, seconded by Chair Thompson, to amend MICC 19.050.060, Section G, impervious surface, subsection 1, and remove subsection D, synthetic turf athletic fields. Okay. Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Perez.
Aye.
Motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on, we're getting into the lighting. The first one is Commissioner Neese. It is log item 9. It's one of Commissioner Neese's multi-part motions. Do you want him to read it? Deputy Clerk? I mean, this, he's adding a new section 2, or can you incorporate it from the language in the matrix?
My apologies, Chair. I was catching up on the last two motions.
Okay.
So
Commissioner Neese has a proposed amendment. It's log 9. It's got multiple parts about lighting and salmon. Do you want him to read it? Or is this something that you're able to copy over from the matrix?
this beautiful matrix makes it possible for me to do that. So I am good.
Okay,
So
so what type of language should Commissioner Neese use for his motion?
I believe this adds, correct me if I'm wrong, Mr. Hornsby, this adds an entirely new section 2 or subsection 2 to section H lighting. So I would just reference section 2 as prepared or as amended.
All right,
Chair Thompson, I have a question.
yes.
There was a recommendation to clarify, I believe, the word shorelands, since that's a defined term, which seemed like a positive change. My question to city staff is, do we also need to clarify that this is in the park zone, or is it implied given that it's in the code section of the park zone? I think there was a
Yeah,
question of.
since this is the
is-
development regulations for the park zone, it would just apply to shorelands if you choose to use that term within parks in the park zone.
Okay, so then I think that the change would be to, and I can read this out, Deb. Just in the first part, all the A through E would be as written, but the top part would be slightly different, and I can read that out to you.
I'll ask that Mr. Hornsby add that for the benefit of everyone.
So it would be where applicable within the shorelands, comma. And then take out at or near the shoreline. That's right. Yeah, thank you.
So Deputy Clerk, can you give Commissioner Neese some direction on how he proposes that? You know, you want him to go in and say he proposes to amend MICC.
I'm just going to, the way I am recording it, if it works for everyone involved, is that we're adding a new subsection 2 as presented, or,
Mhm.
and then I will duplicate what is on the screen right now and put it in the minutes.
Okay. So does he need to make a formal motion?
If he just simply says makes a motion to add new section subsection 2, that'll be sufficient for me.
All right, Commissioner Neese?
So I motion to add new subsection 2.
I second it. So we have a motion by Commissioner Neese to add a new section 2 to section 2, I guess, as drafted on the board there. Commissioner Neese, can you explain your motion?
Yes, so through some recent projects we've worked on the waterfront and working with some consultants, learned a lot about lighting that was salmon friendly and lighting that aims down into the water is detrimental to young fish who are attracted to that and are then more prone to be prey to and affect their survival. So these A through E basically are provisions that help to reduce the amount of light near the shoreline. And then when there is light, the color temperature is also important, that it be more warmer light rather than blue light that's more like daylight. So it's more like moonlight color versus sunlight. And so that last E, one about light temperature covers that.
Any other comments, questions? No, please call the roll.
Thank you, Chair. Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Accuse,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Neese.
Aye.
Thank you.
Okay, the next motion is Commissioner Perez. It is log item 23, also to do with lighting. It also is lengthy.
We'll follow the same rules.
Yeah, all right. Why don't you read your proposed amendment referencing the section that you want to add?
So this is is building, this is off of amendment MICC.
No, you need to say, I move to, or I'd like to propose a motion to amend, then we'll get into it.
Okay, thank you. So I propose a motion to amend MICC 1905.060 section H. We're adding a subsection 3, building upon light control and additional light sensitivity for areas that are the areas that are out in gathering spaces and in covered seating areas. There are some that are existing.
Okay,
And
I mean, but the clerk's we're gonna need the exact specific motion. So you're amending the section, and do you have it up on the board? And are we going exactly off what you have here in your matrix, log 23, Commissioner Perez?
Yes,
All right.
that is
so-
my motion.
And that is your proposed motion, right?
That is correct.
All right, do we have a second?
Second.
All righty. Explain it to us.
So I was struck by the applicability associated with Commissioner Nazim, did some research within the existing lighting standards inside of the standards that we're looking at here under PCB, and offer to the commission the incorporation of dark sky protection in a similar manner, having to do with migratory birds and affecting migratory habits associated with unnecessary glare not being controlled within the park system. I was not able to find documentation associated with it inside of the existing standards. So look to move this motion forward, and obviously it's based on many of the same principles and standards as the salmon sensitivity noted above.
Okay, anybody else have, how about you, Commissioner? I have to use your pen, that's expert on this stuff.
I like anything that helps protect migratory birds.
Right.
And I wonder if staff, I think they've told us there is no section like this already. And the other thing I'm wondering is if the standards are in line with Audubon principles. I don't know if it's called Audubon anymore.
Do you think they changed their name? I don't know what it is. I don't know what their standards are related to lighting and migratory birds. That's something we could look into if the commission would like us to.
Are there existing standards right now for park lighting illumination control?
Just the section one above that talks about shielding and positioning the lighting to direct downwards.
Okay.
It looks good to me. I mean, I'm somebody who's opposed to lighting in parks altogether, if possible. So I thought Commissioner Neese's amendment was good. It's good in here, and I like this too. I think it really, both of them together point out that what we don't want is if we have light in the parks, we don't want to have injurious light. And I think both of these are excellent, so I'm gonna vote for it. Oh, him, Commissioner Gibson?
So the first part of this proposed amendment says where applicable at or near gathering covered seating, gathering and covered seating. That portion of it just seems a little vague to me on where this applies and doesn't apply. And so, you know, this could be expanded to just all
Everywhere.
lighting, would be.
Yeah, so you're saying take out section 3?
Just the first portion of that, strike where applicable at or near gathering and covered spaces and just start with new lighting. I can make a sub motion if you'd like.
What do you think about that? Make it park wise. I mean, he's saying that this in a lot of ways limits it. And, you know, what would be defined as gathering or covered seating? He's saying, you know, why not have this throughout the park?
So do we make a motion to the proposed motion?
He would make, yeah. Yes.
Okay, I'm gonna do that. I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to strike where applicable at or near gathering and covered seating.
Second. Why don't we take the roll call on that?
Let me catch up.
Okay.
So I have an amendment made by Vice Chair Gibson, seconded by Thompson, to amend the original motion, removing where applicable at a near gathering and covered seating.
Correct.
So if there's no debate on that, you can go ahead and vote on that and then vote on the main motion.
Let's do that.
Okay, Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Perez.
Aye.
Thank you. Motion passes 5-0.
Is everybody ready to vote on the underlying motion by Commissioner Perez? When you are ready, Deputy Clerk, we'll take that vote.
Thank you. Hey, Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Commissioner Neese.
Aye.
Main motion passes 5-0.
Okay, moving on, we're on to page 6. We are now into the section shoreline recreation. According to this, it looks like the next amendment is log 6, Commissioner Acuse. So it's a lengthy amendment.
Indeed, and there's kind of two parts to it. There's also a definition defining shoreline park, but it sounds like that might be more appropriately called shoreland. Park.
So shorelands is a term defined in state law, and it
Okay.
refers to anything that's 200 feet upland from the ordinary high water mark. I think whether you call these shoreline parks or shoreland parks doesn't really matter. I think you're defining that term as part of one of your amendments, and as long as it's consistent, it would be fine.
Okay.
So is this amendment, number 6?
I think
beginning
I
of
would need to
section
do
J?
log 8 first before getting into the details. Does that make sense? We don't need to really debate the details if nobody wants to add the definition.
Sure. Why don't you start with your log 8 motion?
All right. I'd like to propose a motion to add a new definition under 1916-10. And the new definition would be for shoreline park as written, a park on the shoreline of Lake Washington that has public access for water dependent recreation.
Is there a second? Not seeing a second. The motion fails. I think that might have been because motion, the amendment 6, log 6. It was, but they're really getting that. But do you want to make your motion on log 6?
Can I do that if there's no definition of shoreline recreation? Okay.
I think so.
All right, I'd like to add section J, shoreline recreation as written. And it's a lot of stuff in there.
Right.
And the main purpose of this was to,
Wait.
Oh.
Let's let the deputy clerk make sure that she's got what she needs from the matrix.
I do, thank you.
Is there a second?
I second.
Commissioner Acuse has made a motion to add section J, shoreline recreation. It has been seconded by Commissioner Perez. And can you speak to this?
yes, I can, thank you. I wanted to add a section called shoreline recreation, in recognition that 90% of the shoreline of Mercer Island roughly is held in private ownership. Only 10% of our shoreline is in public lands, and a big chunk of that is reserved potentially for utilities use in those street ends. So there really is very, very little public access to shorelines in our community. And I think that's a common problem, but I think that cities like Seattle, with Olmsted Brothers, String of Pearls, those folks did a much better job of preserving some public access to the shoreline. You've got to pay a lot of money to be a member of a club to access the shoreline easily on Mercer Island. So I would like to propose that the shoreline recreation kind of define what parks have shoreline recreation. That any improvements
shall include reasonable ingress and egress to improve accessibility. All of our shoreline parks are very hard to get to with children. They're very hard to get to if you're disabled. We already have very limited shoreline and the accessibility is pretty abysmal. I also was proposing one marina facility and one boathouse to be consistent with the pros plan. And we didn't have a marina definition before, but we do now from the Planning Commission last year. There are no publicly accessible boat facilities in our community that is surrounded by water. And I think I could strike item 4 from this proposal because it's already been addressed in the previous amendments. And then,
It's part of the motion, so soldier on.
okay, thanks. Maybe someone can make a motion to strike that one. And then the final one, a maximum of 1 concession stand type building is allowed at each shoreline recreation park. That's just giving folks the opportunity to have concessions at a very small number of parks and making sure they don't go crazy with them and have a large amount of them.
Any comments? Commissioner Gibson, did I? Yes.
Yeah, I'm not necessarily familiar with so can you define what a boathouse is and a marina facility is? Or provide some examples just for my own knowledge.
Yeah, the marina facilities, and I'm thinking the only park that's big enough and realistic enough to do this would be Luther Burbank. And that would be in some future master planning process at some point in time, just wanting to leave the door open that there could be a public marina. So public marina is a place where the public can, oh, thank you. Yeah, we have a definition now. Yeah, so that's defined. And then a boathouse is a building that houses boats. So something like if you've ever been to Lake Sammamish, they have the crew house there.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And that's the pros plan.
Thank you.
Commissioner Perez, do you have some comment?
Yeah, I have a couple of comments just really quickly. So I really appreciate the breadth of this motion. I'm gonna insert just a really brief thing. One of the things that my son, I think I can say this, my son is involved in something called the Safe Club in the high school. Well, I'll leave it at that. It basically has to do with substance abuse and creating a safe environment at the high school. He's a senior. One of the things in some discussions with him, one of the things that he asked me for was, is there an opportunity to activate the waterfront for the age demographic within high school? Primarily for the reason that, and again, this would be an interesting combination, but primarily because of places for teenagers to go on the island that are not individual private homes are extremely limited. And looking for ways to activate the waterfront, an amenity that we have here on the island, was foundational. I believe that this would be a way to activate the waterfront, create ways for youth on the island to be able to engage. And one of the startling statistics he provided to me was that the self-reported binge rate on Mercer Island is 3 times the national average. Self-reported here, so it's 27%. As opposed to 9%. And obviously there's additional parameters need to be installed, but I think activating the waterfront, an existing amenity, creating connections to the water, creating the way of appreciating this incredible environment, but in a more of a public gesture way, I think is a noble cause, and I'll back this.
I'll just have some comments. This really supersedes the pros plan and the master park plans that we worked so hard. It supersedes the Luther Burbank waterfront master plan. There were endless discussions about commerce and concession stands in the parks. The neighbors, the citizens, the park staff weren't too keen on them for the garbage and everything. So what we're talking about is pretty significant development, boat houses and concession stands and a marina in each park. I mean, even if the city, pardon? Or each,
total.
well, there's one gonna be in, it says up to one marina facility and one boathouse each will be allowed among all shoreline parks.
Among all shoreline parks.
Oh,
So inclusive of all shoreline parks, there could
Oh.
only be one marina and one boathouse.
but, okay, but we have that at Luther Burbank. That's going to
Well,
be.
exactly.
Yeah.
That's exactly the point, is that it's not conform, I mean,
Well, I mean, they're doing the waterfront remodel. And so, I mean, the lights I agree with. I don't agree with the concession stands. And I don't know what the reasonable ingress and egress, are. We have trails, we went over the trails, we went over the impervious surface limits. So I don't know that this is necessary. I mean, if it's just one marina facility and one boathouse for all the parks, that's okay, that's Luther Burbank, they're doing that, and that was agreed to. The lighting at shoreline parks will be turned off within 1 hour of dusk. I think that the lighting regulations for parks already states like 30 minutes or something. Or after an event is over, so. No offense, but I don't think it's necessary, and I think it conflicts or is confusing with what we have in the pros and the master plan, yeah.
I wanted to comment on the use of the term marina facility here. The marina code that was adopted last year, I believe, limits marinas to places where there's already a marina. And so new marinas cannot be developed in other places. So I believe that conflicts with what's been proposed here. A potential amendment would be to change this to a public pier or dock, which is a separate code section that applies just to publicly accessible piers and docks.
But-
can I amend my motion to change that to public pier off? Or do I need to make a motion to amend my
You make-
motion?
You need to make a motion.
I would like to make a motion to amend item 3 to say up to one public pier and to strike item 4 because it is redundant.
This is what's on the screen.
And you would add pier up to one public pier and boathouse each will be allowed. Because a boathouse is different than a pier. And the purpose of both of these is to be consistent with existing infrastructure and with the pros plan.
Is there a public pier now?
There is a public pier now. I fished off it. It's right down the hill.
In Syrian?
In Luther Burbank Park at the bottom of the hill,
Yeah, that is classified as a public pier, not a dock.
is it?
Well, public piers and docks are in the same category.
Okay.
So it is currently in that category, and what's planned to be rebuilt will be permitted in that category.
What would you call the dock at Clark Beach? Would we have to take that out? We just put it in.
It's a good point. I think it is also a public dock.
Do we have other public docks? Groveland, does it have a dock? I thought that they redid that too.
I don't know.
No, not yet. Okay.
This might be something that we can come back with to take a look at what the definitions are of a
Yeah.
dock versus a
If there's
pier.
interest in putting something forward along these lines, we could certainly refine the language.
Can I make a motion to table this item and ask staff to help me with clarity on it? Do I have to rescind in addition to tabling? Or do I just table it and it's semi-open still?
I'm always in favor of making it as clean as possible. Are you going to keep any portion of your main motion? Or do you want to take this entire section, which was in it, and send it back to staff to rewrite and bring it back to you?
I'd like to take the entire section and send it back to staff.
Okay, then let's withdraw the motion, both
Okay,
the amendment and the main motion, and let staff go back to the table on this. That would be my thoughts.
Okay.
Allison and Carson, does that make it easier?
That's fine with me.
and there was no second, so do I need to withdraw the motion on the motion?
No, you withdraw and then the person who seconded it, I believe that was you, Commissioner Perez.
Your amendment did not have a second, your main motion did.
Okay, so I'd like to withdraw my amendment, and then I would also like to withdraw my main motion.
My second.
Thanks, Deb. I know, love you.
Okay. Moving on, let's see, next I'm getting into public art. Have we already done this, right? Minor amendment log 2, so we did that. Next, we move down to recreational facilities, and the definition. And, I believe this is Commissioner Acu. Would you please make your motion?
I'd like to make a motion to add boathouses to recreational facilities definition.
I'll second that.
Would you like to speak to it?
This is for consistency with the pros plan and a potential boathouse for the rowing club.
For the, what, I'm sorry?
Mercer Island Rowing Club has been
Oh.
incorporated as a 501(c)(3).
Oh, you mean at Luther?
Yeah, the 501(c)(3) is a separate entity and they're coordinating currently with a 2026 plan at Luther to have a pilot
I didn't know that.
program.
Okay. Any discussion?
Boathouse is, in the scenario you're talking about, is, on land storage of boats, not over water.
Does that need to be clarified?
I don't
I'm not
know.
a boathouse.
I think it would be helpful to clarify it
Mm.
because any overwater structures would be heavily regulated by the Shoreline Management Act and
It
would
would.
require a lot more process.
So should we say land-based stuff? Would we just call that?
Yeah, I mean, even things within the shoreland area could potentially
Yeah.
need to be reviewed as a shoreline amendment, so this one, I don't have a problem with adding boathouses here, but we may want to have staff take another look at this to determine if we need to consider any additional amendments related to shorelines on this. Because I'm assuming that the structure would probably be in that shoreland area within 200 feet of the ordinary high water mark.
Like,
Well, at that point, would you just defer to the shoreline regulations and have to comply with that?
I don't think it necessarily prohibits it, especially if it's a public facility that's meant to assist public use of the shoreline for recreation, like that is a priority of the Shoreline Management Act. But we just need to look at like how all the regulations would mesh together and whether any other amendments would be needed.
are you suggesting that I withdraw this until you can figure out what those other regulations are, or can we just leave this now because we know it's allowed by ecology?
I would like a little more time to look into it and discuss it with our legal team.
Clerk, can I withdraw my motion, please? Thank you. Or sorry,
Let's,
not withdraw it.
I think I would propose that we vote on it, and if it's approved, then staff can go back and do the legal.
We can
review.
treat it the same as that previous issue where it was withdrawn and then you asked staff to provide clarifying language or any additional information.
So Commissioner Gibson is suggesting we vote. Calling for a vote.
Yeah, I just say we vote for it, and then if there's legal
Okay.
issues, we'll talk about it at the
That'd be
next,
fine.
the next meeting.
All right, would you please call the roll?
A motion by Akey, seconded by Gibson to amend the definition of recreational facilities to include boat houses before and boat launches. Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Nay.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
and Commissioner Perez.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Okay, we're moving on and now this is Commissioner Acuse, Major Amendment Log 8, adding a definition for shoreline park.
We already did that one.
We already voted
Oh,
no on that one.
all right, I believe
Page 9F,
Huh?
page 9, item F.
Yes, yeah, I see that. Okay, so this is, my amendment, so I will make it. I move to amend MICC 19.01.0420 zone establishment. Add language at the end of the section, quote, to change the zoning of any park in the park zone shall require 5 votes of the council, end quote.
Second.
I think, some of us probably got Commissioner Rogeb's email. The original desire by the citizens was to have a vote of the citizens, and over the years, there's been people try to get petitions on the ballot, and to do that, knowing that, of course, the citizens would never vote to rezone park property. And I think it's some of them. Just to look at some of the recent rezones. One was they rezoned the sculpture garden for a large mixed-use building that at Tully's that didn't work out. And now it's going to be a surface parking lot, that part of the sculpture garden. They rezoned the property next to Haps Burger Linear Park, because that was going to be underground parking. It was a pie in the sky proposal, but that's back when we needed commuter parking. And then, it turned out to be polluted, and the deed said that the money would go to WashDOT if we sold it, so we didn't do it. There was a kind of a soft proposal, they never got to it, to put a large manufactured building next to the bathrooms in Mercerdale for the sorting for the thrift store. So I didn't know about a vote because that would be expensive and cumbersome. But I did think that it's worth having some type of supermajority. The staff seemed to indicate that it was prohibited by the RCWs. I don't think that's correct. I think that a council can have supermajorities, and some have done it, for raising taxes and stuff. So, but I would be interested to hear from what BO might have to say about that.
That staff comment was drafted by Kim Adams Pratt. I believe she's watching the meeting and maybe able to pop on and make a
Okay.
comment on that.
Yes, I can. My video won't come on. It says it's disabled by the host. So I don't know if that.
We are correcting that right now, Kim.
Thank you.
But while you're trying to fix that, I didn't have time to, I sent out an email with the provisions, and I did some light research. I didn't get into the case law on it, but
There is actually no case law on these RCWs, but what it does is you have to look at the voting procedures for a city like Mercer Island, which is a council manager form of government. Can I share my screen? Thank you. So what that note in your materials showed was this RCW 35A13 applies to council manager forms of governments. And you go to 170. And that's council meetings and quorums, and it tells you all the provisions of 35A12, 110, and 120 are going to apply to voting at council meetings. So then we go to 35A12, 120. And this last part of the sentence, which is I think where Mr. Thompson and I disagree, the passage of any ordinance, grant, or revocation, chapter, or license with any resolution payment of money shall require the affirmative vote of at least a majority of the whole membership of the council. The important part here is referring to a majority of the whole membership of the council. You have two kinds of voting majorities in a council meeting. One is if all 7 members are there, then you need a majority of 4. And you have to have that whole membership majority vote for it in these particular instances. So this sentence here is very specific that you have to have 4-member majority for these things. The other type of vote you might have is when you have less than a whole majority at a meeting. Say you have 5 members there. Your majority is going to be 3, and they're going to be able to vote and pass things that do not fall under these particular instances. But you will always just need that majority unless specifically required by statute. And there are a few instances where a supermajority is required by statute, but otherwise you need just the majority. And this says at least a majority of the whole membership. What it's referring to again is this whole membership concept versus when you have less than 7 members at a meeting. So I do not believe, it's my opinion, as a municipal attorney, that you cannot impose that supermajority on a city council for this type of vote to change zoning.
So can I ask a question? Are you aware of any city in the state of Washington that has adopted a greater than a simple majority to pass an ordinance?
Between now and 2:30, when I got your comment, no.
Is that something you could look into?
Not unless I'm asked to by the administration.
Okay, but if the administration asked you, you would be able to research that.
I think that's what I just said.
Okay. Well, granted, I only started doing the research this afternoon. I thought we would get maybe an opinion from the city attorney.
I did talk to Beal, Mr. Thompson.
Oh, good. And what did he say?
Just what I told you.
Okay. So based on your research from late this afternoon to now, your opinion?
No, I've actually been a municipal attorney for quite a while. So this is based on my opinion of not just a half an hour of research.
Okay, all right. But there's no case law.
That's what I said, right? No case law on this statute.
Well, I have my proposed motion there. I just, I guess we have a disagreement. I believe that the language is where it says at least a majority of the whole membership of the council is fairly simple. I don't think they would have put in at least, but if you're concerned about her opinion based on her research, I would understand that too. Any other questions?
Chair Thompson, the way this is written and the way that is written, I think you'd still need to change your language to say affirmative votes. Because 5 votes can be nay or yay and still be 5 votes, right? The way it's written out, I think you would still need to align your language to what's up on the screen there. We need to say affirmative votes, I believe,
Okay, for clarification.
because 5 votes, just as 5 votes, doesn't say whether that's against or for.
All right, I guess I could make a motion on that. Let me get that. If that helps with the clarification. I'd like to make a motion to amend the motion to add, to amend the language to read, to change the zoning of any park in the park zone shall require 5 affirmative votes of the council. Is there a second?
Second.
Can you call the roll?
Just one moment while I catch up. Thank you. And just for clarification, Chair Thompson, was there any debate on that item?
Any debate?
Are
This is
we,
on the motion within the motion?
Yes.
No.
No.
For me, what?
are we saying this is also, like, we're voting for this, but then saying it needs to go through the vetting process?
No, we're just gonna vote to amend the language to add affirmative. Based on your, and
okay.
then it'll come back to the main motion.
Thank you, got it.
Any discussion? Please call the roll.
Okay. We have a motion to amend the main motion by Chair Thompson, seconded by Vice Chair Gibson to add the word affirmative. Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
and Chair Thompson.
Aye. Okay, we're back.
Amendment passes 5-0.
All right,
Excuse
so
me.
we're back to the main motion, discussion or questions?
I have a question.
Sure.
Can you pull the WAC language, or is it RCW? Back up. So, like, the way I'm reading it, they're kind of saying the same thing already, but I want to get clarification on that. So, for that last sentence, for the passage of any ordinance, which is zoning changes in ordinance, is that correct, staff? Okay, so for the passage of any ordinance, requires the affirmative vote of at least a majority of the whole membership. So if there's 7 people on the council, you need a majority of the whole membership, which would be 4. So we're debating between 4 and 5 here. Is that what's happening? Okay, thank you.
Kim, you're on mute. Did you respond?
I just did, sorry. No matter how many council members are actually at that meeting, let's say there's 5. You have to have 4 affirmative votes.
Thank you.
Mhm.
Any,
Yeah, I guess I'm comfortable with the majority. I mean, our council flip-flops from more conservative to more liberal, but I think it often represents, generally the people, you have to get 4 votes. And it's hard to get 4 votes if something's controversial. So I think it's kind of adequate as written there. I wasn't aware of this before.
Commissioner Neese, do you have any questions?
Well, no, I agree with Kate. And it seems to be supported language by the law. Not my field of expertise.
All right. Can you call the roll call, please, clerk?
We have a motion by Thompson, seconded by Gibson to amend MICC 19.01.040 zone establishment, section F, to add, to change the zoning of any park in the parks zone shall require 5 votes of the council. Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Nay.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Nay.
and Commissioner Hughes.
Nay.
Motion fails 3-2.
Okay, I think we're nearing the end, aren't we? I have the motion on amending the zoning map. Is there? Did I miss any? I mean, look through your the matrix, make sure I didn't. But I'll just move to mine. This is log 19. My motion is amendment to MICC 19.01.040 A zones. Amend the proposed City of Mercer Island zoning map to change Aubrey Davis Park from the public institution or PI zone to park zone. Is there a second?
Second.
I sent out a long email explaining kind of the history of this. The city has their response. I would respectfully disagree that the public institution zone is consistent with the air lease with WashDOT. As I pointed out, the public institution zone allows a 12-foot height limit plus another 12 feet for each 2.5 acres. Aubrey Davis Park is 90 acres. I don't think WashDOT would be happy with us building a 432-foot height building in the park. I think it is and always has been considered a park. And all I've asked all along is to write WashDOT. I mean, when the Parks Department wanted to widen the trail through the Lid Park, they consistently wrote to them and said, hey, you know, can we do a larger trail? So this is such a big issue. And do I think that the city is going to run up there and build a 432-foot building? No, I don't. But the council's already rezoned two parts of Aubrey Davis, the one next to Haps and the one next to Tully's. And neither of those got rezoned back. So my thinking is this: if only the council can write to or ask WashDOT, you know, what their thoughts are, and they're not going to do it, and they haven't done it since 2022 when they first did this, or January 24 when this was first rolled out, and this was the biggest contentious issue. I think it should be the council that removes Aubrey Davis from the park zone. They can write if they want, but they should remove it, and I think that they should publicly own it. I mean, this is contentious. I think it reflects on the planning commission. It reflects on me because I've been involved with the parks. So I think it's their prerogative to do that. And, you know, this is just a recommendation to the council. This isn't going to be the ordinance unless, you know, they adopt it. So that's my thinking on it. Anybody else? Yes, Commissioner Gibson.
So when I was looking at the staff response, they referenced RCW 47-12-120, which applies to lease of unused highway land or airspace. From what I interpret is WashDOT has the jurisdiction to lease unused land, and when they do lease it, the use of that leased land falls under the city's jurisdiction, whatever that zone is. And so right now, WashDOT has the ability to lease it, and if they did, the user would be subject to the public institution zone requirements. I don't think that's in the interest of what people want for Linear Park. And so if that scenario does come up, I think it's in the interest of the community to have it be the park zone so that whatever lessee could potentially utilize unused airspace or or land, falls within park zone uses.
Anyone else? Yeah,
I have a question. So I'm having trouble finding that. Can you pull up the staff response? Can you pull up the matrix, please? Because I somehow managed to close that one and I seem to be opening everyone but that. I think my main question is around ownership, and whether WashDOT or the city of Mercer Island owns the land fee simple. Like who owns the land and who has the right of way? And the reason I'm asking this is because I've had to do permits where WashDOT has the right of way and there's just no flexibility in their rules. So I'm concerned about this amendment for two reasons. One is I don't think it'll get us anywhere, especially if WashDOT owns the land outright and, or even if they have right of way. And then the other concern I would have is, we say it has to be city-owned property. So I think most of my questions can be answered, if I can have 2 minutes after I hear who owns the land and who has right of way on the land.
Kim, why don't you jump in there?
Yeah, WashDOT owns the land. The city is there by lease. And those leases were entered into prior to that change in the RCW that said they would be subject to the city's zoning laws. And so any renegotiation of those leases, that's what the city will be dealing with is WashDOT having to comply with whatever zoning regulations control that right of way that they own.
Can I ask one clarifying question?
Mhm.
So if WashDOT owns the land and we're leasing it,
Mhm.
it seems like it would be automatically disqualified if we have a requirement that the city owns the land to be in the park zone. Would we need to go back and change the definition of the park zone?
The park zone owns or manages the land, I believe.
It's owns or manages? I thought it was owned by the city.
It's owned, leased, or managed by the city of Mercer
Owned,
Island.
leased, or managed. Okay. So it could be included because it's leased. However, WashDOT does own it. And so what I'm hearing is the new law says if you make, basically what I'm hearing, I think what I'm hearing from the city attorney is unless we renegotiated our lease with WashDOT, we'd still be subject to WashDOT's rules and regs, zoning rules and regs. Like who's lead entity, for lack of a better word, on the zoning jurisdiction?
Currently, those leases, I would say, have WashDOT in control of whatever happens on the property they are leasing to the city. During lease negotiations, that new statute would have to be taken into consideration by WashDOT. Do they want to lease it back to the city under the current, whatever those are, development regulations?
And I would
Okay,
say
so
it's
having
extra
that,
Right now, WashDOT doesn't have to worry about that.
having that clarification, I think I would be amenable to recommending the city council like explore that topic, but I think given the current from what I'm hearing, we don't have the authority to control zoning in that area.
Can I ask a follow-up? So, currently it's zoned as a public institution zone, and so WashDOT would still, this RCW would still apply. It would just be a public, they'd have to go to the public institution portion of our code.
I did look at to see if it would be retroactive to the leases that were entered into prior to that statute being passed. And my research was that they would not, these leases that we currently have with not WashDOT are not subject to that statute. So we are bound by the lease terms only, which basically give WashDOT all control.
Correct, in the current lease, and then when they renew the lease, whenever that expires, then if it stays a public institution, they will have to adhere, or the lessee has to adhere to the public institution zone.
But-
Yeah.
Lessee and lessor.
You know, I just want to make a point. I am no way indicating that we want to do something that WashDOT disagrees with. I'm not saying that we go to WashDOT and sit there and say, hey, this is our zone. This is how we're going to do it. I'm talking about property that, I mean, I lived in the neighborhood when the new bridge and the park was built. It's been treated as a park since that time. The turnback agreements and the air lease really severely restrict the buildings and the drainage issues because of the tunnel. And in its most simplest form, all I'm asking and have asked all along is why not write to WashDOT and sit there and say, hey, here's the public institution zone. It's like our town center zone, except with a greater height limit. And here's the park zone. We want to put it in the park zone and continue to treat it basically how we've treated it for the last 40 some years. Do you have an objection to that? I mean, I don't understand. If they came back and said, yeah, we like the public institution zone, for whatever reason, okay, end of story. But we have to sell this to the citizens. And when this first came out, they were very unhappy about it. And I still do not understand why someone just hasn't written to WashDOT. Because usually they write back like they did with the trail and said, you know, we really don't care. Do what you want, but check with us before you do any type of development. So that's all I'm saying. This is an issue the council should own. They can write to WashDOT. We can't. We found out that we don't have that authority. They haven't. But if they don't want to write to them and take Aubrey Davis Park out of the park zone, that's their prerogative. They're the council. And then they can vote for it. And they're the ones who run for election and they can explain it to the citizens. Or maybe they'll write to WashDOT. And if WashDOT wrote back and objected, absolutely, you would leave it in the public institution zone, probably because we're going to continue to treat it like a park. My guess is they would write back and say, geez, I thought it wasn't a park zone. It sure looks like a park, but we don't really care. But if you're going to do any development, check with us. That's my thinking on it. This is their decision. We should put it in the park zone. They're the ones who should take it out. Anything further?
What do we need to do to pass this on to the council?
Can I ask a question too, though, about park zone? Before we move on to voting or passing anything on to council, the big utility building that's next to the play fields, is that in this linear park? Currently designated linear park zone or public institution? Because that's a massive building. That's not,
With the handball court.
I don't know. That's more than 3,500 feet. And then there's those giant tall tube thingies, like
That
There's
like
a bunch of
ventilation structure, is that what
non-conforming-
you're talking about?
structures there right now. So I don't know. I think we need to make sure that we weren't either add those things to the list of buildings that are allowed if it's a park zone, because there's infrastructure that's inconsistent with the park zone as written.
The zoning only affects and controls what the city does. It doesn't affect or control what WashDOT does. You know, so it doesn't matter, you know, it's our park zone.
That's not correct.
I don't know that that's true.
It's not.
So
Like when we try to do a project for King County, and there's WashDOT right of way, it's their domain. We have to do what they tell
Highway
us to.
purposes.
but you write to them, correct? And you ask them? Is that what you do?
I think it depends on the situation, yeah.
I want to make sure that the commission is leaning in so that we can hear the comments.
Oh, my question was, yes, I mean, she works for King County and when she's gonna do projects, she writes to WashDOT and asks them. And I just, That's all
It's
I'm
a
asking.
project, that's on a project specific, that's like an existing capital project. I just don't want to set up park staff
Mhm.
for like endless negotiations with WashDOT, even though they have to do them anyway. I don't know.
Yeah, I just wanted to make a point of order. So right now, the commission's considering this amendment to the map, the zoning map. There's a separate proposal to write a letter to WashDOT that we'll be considering under the next agenda item.
Right. So yes, I'd like to do both. That being said, can we have a vote? It's getting late. We'll do this and then the other one, and then I guess we can move to the land use map, right? That'd be quick.
I have a motion by Thompson, seconded by Gibson to amend Title 19 Appendix D zoning map to amend the City of Mercer Island zoning map to change Aubrey Davis Park from PI zone to park zone. Commissioner Perez,
Nay.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Commissioner Hughes,
Nay.
and Commissioner Neese.
Aye.
Motion passes 3-2.
Okay, the final motion that we have is mine, I believe. And it is let me, where did I leave that? Well, let me ask how we should do that. We have one that we talked about earlier about somehow joining the recommendation to the council, the Park Recreation Commission, where they recommended that the council consider some type of joint process to, have them decide art projects. How would you recommend we draft a recommendation to the council? It's not part of the park zone, but a recommendation asking them to write to WashDOT to see if WashDOT has any objections to placing Aubrey Davis Park in the new park zone.
Well, there's already a recommendation on that we've been calling a additional recommendation. It's covered under the next agenda bill along with the comprehensive plan amendment. But wasn't there another item related to supporting the PRC recommendation on forgetting exactly what it was? Oh, the art, the public art and the process for approving art installations in parks.
Yes, and what we decided to do is join the Parks and Recreation Commission recommendation in their memo, rather than put any type of thing into the park zone. We were just
Yeah.
gonna join.
So
the
when we
par-
get to these additional recommendations in the next agenda item, I'd recommend just making a motion to formalize that and take a vote on it.
Okay, so we don't need to do that now.
Correct.
Okay, did I miss anybody's motion in the matrix? Okay,
Good job.
so I don't think we're ready until the next meeting, right, for the formal vote to adopt the new park zone.
Correct. We have a number of items that have been approved to be included in the recommendation. We have a couple that were held for additional staff work. And we will bring back an updated draft that includes the items that were approved tonight and suggests draft language for those other items. And then you can take a final vote on that at the next meeting.
Do you want to do the land use map now or at that meeting?
Let's include it in that approval at the next meeting because that will be the comprehensive code amendment then.
Okay. Okay, is there a staff report this evening? What? I'm sorry, what?
We still have,
Why do we have to do it now? Well, they said that we're gonna do it next. Do you need a motion?
Oh, the land use
Sound-
map will
okay,
come up
good.
with the comp plan.
Yeah, so.
Oh, so now we need to move to the comprehensive plan amendment.
Right.
And that includes the staff proposal to update the land use designation table. And then there was the one proposal from Chair Thompson about redesignating Aubrey Davis from linear park to park. And then once we've covered that, we can move on to the additional recommendations.
Do we need to do that tonight?
We certainly can just complete the work on the comprehensive plan tonight, if you'd like to.
I'm asking you, you must be tired. How about you, Deb? You want to wait until the next meeting? I mean, it's June 10th. I think we can do the comprehensive plan in about 10 minutes, 15, but it's pretty, everyone's probably pretty.
Yeah, I agree. There's not too much there, so.
I think we'll get it pretty quickly on this one.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on. I lost my spot. Okay, now we're moving to PCB 25-10, public hearing on the Park Zone Comprehensive Plan Amendment. May I have a main motion to recommend that the city council adopt the proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan, land use designation table, and land use map?
So moved.
Second.
Okay, there is a motion by Commissioner Gibson and a second by Commissioner Accuse to recommend that the city council adopt the proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan, land use designation table, and land use map. Is there any debate on this item?
I think this is where you want to.
Yes, there is.
I can make the motion.
Okay,
I move to amend MICC 1901-040A zones. City of Mercer Island land use map to change Aubrey Davis Park from linear park to park.
seconded. Since it's my motion, I mean, this is pretty much what we have to do. It's consistent. We voted to add Aubrey Davis Park to the park zone. We need to amend the land use map to reflect that. So I don't know what the debate is. None. Can you please call the roll?
I'm going to ask that Vice Chair Gibson repeat his motion. I don't have text to refer to, so I want to make sure I've captured the amendment to the main motion correctly.
Okay, it is the same as the matrix, by the way.
Thank you. Thank you, Allison. Okay, I have a motion by Gibson, seconded by Thompson to amend the MICC 19.101.040A zones Amend the City of Mercer Island land use map to change Aubrey Davis Park from linear park to park. And if there's no debate, sounds like,
I don't think so.
okay,
Call the vote, please.
yes. Commissioner Hughes,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez,
Nay.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
and Commissioner Thompson, excuse me, Chair Thompson.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1. Do you want to vote on the main motion now?
Yes, please.
Chair Thompson,
Aye.
Vice Chair Gibson,
Aye.
Commissioner Neese,
Aye.
Commissioner Perez.
I am so sorry. We are voting on the,
The main motion is to recommend that the city council adopt the proposed amendments to the comprehensive plan, land use designation table and land use map. As amended.
okay. Nay, nay.
And Commissioner Hughes.
Aye.
Motion passes 4-1.
Well, that's the end of regular business. Is there a staff report?
Point of order, we still had the two or the one or two additional recommendations. Do you want to hold those to consider at the next meeting or cover those now?
Why don't we do them in the next meeting? We've done quite a bit tonight.
Okay, that's fine. In terms of the staff report, I'll be very brief. We have our next meeting scheduled for June 10th. It's a special meeting. The regular meeting later in June has been canceled. We will be meeting in July. I don't have that date in front of me, but it's the last Wednesday of July. There's no meetings scheduled for August. That is the city's summer recess. And so then we'll be coming back in September. I think that's all I'll say for now. We will be back on the 10th to finish up these park zone items. We will also be bringing back the temporary structures and uses that was delayed from the meeting that was canceled a couple months back. So we'll have a lot to cover at that meeting as well. That temporary uses item will have an additional touch in July, so we won't need to complete it next time.
Great.
That's all I have.
Well, I just want to say thank you for all the work that you did on this, the matrix, and then coming up with the highlighted. That really, really was helpful. So I do appreciate it, everyone. So the next meeting is a special meeting, June 10th. There being no other business to come before the Planning Commission, the time now is 9:50 and the meeting is concluded.